Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 261. I am Pierre and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, bangarang.
And also here with it. It.
Pennywise? He does have red hair and pale skin.
Is he behind me?
No, he is you.
Yes, for the first time on the show, we actually have an active participant who is currently suffering from, well, COVID-19. So
Yep. I'm only about 60% here right now.
yes.
Which is
if
an
you notice me, like,
significant improvement from where you normally are.
oh, this time, like 2 days ago, I was maybe 20% here. I'm kind of in and out.
Yeah.
I've
don't
gone
worry.
through everything.
I've got the in memory off screen ready to go in case you snuff it. It's ready to go.
God damn, that's dark. I don't like that.
Matt, you're lucky.
I didn't even blink.
You're lucky.
You're
lucky I was very late, Matt. I was actually going to make one that I could flash on the screen as soon as I said that, but didn't have time. I thought I'll do that. You know that thing in the office where Dwight sets up the birthday party? It just says, "It is your birthday." I was going to try and mimic that, yeah, but with an in-living memory. So it'd just be like, Connor has died. And just that.
It's a statement of fact.
Yes. Connor has died this year to this year. Just leave it at that. But no. The ginger is very much alive. In fact, we're probably going to hear from him throughout the show.
Probably.
Maybe occasionally he'll pipe in. This is a DC Comics podcast. We talk about DC Comics every week. We get together. We've read a bunch of books, and unlike last week's weird week, which was a week 5 and had a very odd format and system, we are back to normalcy this week with a little bit of Batman issue 110, Justice League 64, Green Lantern issue 4, Swamp Thing issue 5, Wonder Girl issue 2, and The Nice House in the Lake issue 2 as well. Plus, I've got a couple of Patreon books catching up from last month with American Vampire 20 and Secret Origins issue 39, which is part of the ongoing Morrison Animal Man run, for the record. So that is what's coming up book-wise. But, there's a little bit of news. But before that even, everyone's favourite segment. This is why I know Connor is soldiering on to come on the show. He couldn't resist. He couldn't bear the thought of missing another ComiXology top 10.
I'll be honest. I considered saying, you guys start without me. I'll jump in after about half an hour after you've done this section.
It's not even that last thing. Everyone loves this section. It's everyone's favourite. I mean, not you two, but everyone else.
I was say, me and Matt don't, so that is definitively not everyone.
I'm not including people on the show. I'm including the audience, the people, the masses, the...
You hear that, Matt? We're not people.
I mean, we know he felt that way about you for a long time now, so
yeah, that's
more of a surprise for me. I learned just not to fight it and just get it over with.
I can live with that. So
it's like taking medicine.
Yes, well, number 1 is a DC book. So would anyone care to guess that this is ComiXology top 10 at time of recording, which is the usual Saturday time this week for the record?
Well, I have a guess. It's one of two.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Batman or Nice House on the Lake.
I concur.
It is Batman. Batman issue 110 is number 1 at the time of recording. A Nice House on the Lake, well, it's a nice guess. It's a nice guess, but I'm not even seeing that on the front page. So
okay, well, I know my shop sold out of them, so
yeah, it's selling really well physically, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. Marvel are dominating the rest of this top 10 here because
they got buy one get one free sale on as well.
Well, I think it's mostly single issues, though. To be fair, you could get X-Men issue 1. I guess there was an issue 1 of X-Men this week.
Another issue 1?
News to me. I mean, this is just called X-Men. This is not any of these other books that they've got going on.
Objectiveless X-Men.
We've got X-Force issue 21 at number 3. Amazing Spider-Man 70 at number 4. Number 5 is Hellions, which is also an X book. Number 6 is Immortal Hulk, which bizarrely in ComiXology right now doesn't have a cover. It just says cover not yet released yet. It's out and you can buy it.
It's a really nice cover.
So that's that. Number 7 is Justice League issue 64. So just the next sort of big title DC book. You got Amazing Spider-Man Infinite No, it's annual. It's the annual. It says Infinite at the top of the cover, but it's the annual issue 2. That's up next, and then at number 9 you got Avengers 46, and then number 10 is Star Wars Bounty Hunters something something issue 14. So there's your top 10. Going a little bit further down, the next DC book actually is Batman: The Adventure Continues, season 2. So I guess that's
this is your first one, right?
digital first, yeah. Immediately followed by a Wonder Girl, which is at what's that there? But 14. That's that. Green Lantern's coming in at 18, and then some of the other Swamp Things in the next row. So I mean, they're kind of spread out throughout the first page for the most part. Nice House in the Lake, I assume, is going to be on page 2 when I go to it. Yeah, that's number 25. It's literally the first thing on page 2. So cool. I wonder how many people are buying the variants and stuff.
Yeah.
For that.
Well, I do know my shop didn't have any left on the shelf by the time I got there, and I got there earlier because I'm working earlier. So people must have come in. And I know the speculator market right now is going crazy for whatever reason with certain stuff. So
yeah, although I don't think issue 2 is anything particularly speculatory. I think it's just selling.
I don't think it either. I just think I know they ordered a lot, and so I don't know if maybe the one guy that works there is a big Tynion fan when it's not Batman. So I know he's been recommending it to people.
I think this will be one of those books where that trade will sell well for DC for a long time.
No doubt. When I said covers, I wasn't necessarily thinking speculator. I was just thinking that people love it enough that they're ordering up.
No, I know.
2 or 3 covers or whatever.
I just know because when I went over to the because I always check because I have my pull list, but I always go and check the wall just in case anything I forgot to put on there.
I do the same.
They forgot to grab. And there was a guy and his girlfriend or wife standing there looking through the stacks for something. And it was very, like, I'd never seen them before. Granted, it was earlier than I normally go. But they just had the vibe that they weren't, like,
not regulars.
Yeah, so I don't know what they were looking for. I just kind of grabbed my stuff before they could. Kind of wondered if I should pick up the Wonder Girl.
Obviously, it was obviously Batman Fortnite. That's what they were looking for.
Maybe. I didn't see any of those either. So that's a hot book, maybe.
It's a very hot book. That's also selling a lot.
Not surprisingly, once you get past that first sort of 20 to 30, mostly single issues from the week, Marvel's got a Black Widow trade sale on, obviously, so there's a bunch of those popping up.
Oh, I gotta read that Kelly Thompson.
And that combines with the buy one get one free sale as well. So
yeah. So after that, but if anything, I'm impressed that it's not dominating the actual top 10. There was no trades in the top 10. It was all just
people don't care about Black Widow enough, apparently, even this week.
Maybe I don't know. But I should be talking to Matt about that soon, so I'm going to save my thoughts on Black Widow.
Yes.
Beyond what I've already.
Judging based off of your Twitter, we disagree heartily. So
I will go on a limb and say it's a Marvel movie.
I will confirm that it is indeed a Marvel movie. I will agree with that.
As will I.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Just a peek for those that watch this before the reviews drop. Red Guardian reminded me too much of my dad, and I did not like it. So.
Okay.
Fun there. Yeah.
All right. That's your ComiXology top 10 for the week. So I look forward to next week's thrilling installment of ComiXology.
Yeah, have fun with that, Connor. I'll be thinking of you while sitting at the beach, going, Connor loves the weekly sales chat.
Yes. So we do have some news. We got some announcements this week, which I guess maybe means that they're planning on the early solicits again for next Friday. Given that we're already getting some announcements. So first thing, Tom King teased the thing, and makes sense. Mm-hmm. 2 of his books are literally about to finish, which you assume that he finished writing a while ago at this point. So he's got something else new to go along with Supergirl. He's done a Human Target book.
Yeah. So when this first started, the first thing I saw on this was Mitch Garrett's tweet out. Go, oh, I know what this is, and it's very exciting. And I just looked at the hands, and it looked like Justice League International.
Well, that is who the hands are.
Yeah. And I was like, is this a payoff to that part in Mr. Miracle, where they went out drinking with the blue and the gold, and there's the blue and the gold and the yellow and the red, that whole section, and then Connor went, I don't think that's what it is, which I don't know if you had seen that, if you'd seen what it was yet, because I didn't see it till.
Yeah, I had.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be prominent characters in it.
No. But I was thinking, this is
an announcement, because
right.
It's still exciting, but oh man, I wanted my JLI.
Well, I mean, I think for this, I'm kind of excited because I don't really give a shit about Human Target. I never really have. But that's kind of why that's exciting, because Tom King with these minis tends to come in and says, "Hey, this is why you should care about this character."
I'm more excited about the Great Smallwood art, to be honest.
Well, yeah, Smallwood's great. Yeah. I love the concept of Human Target, and I didn't have another way to explain this, because I know people get, pulpy's one of my words. I said it. Take a drink if you're following along at home. Mm-hmm. But there's like this silver aginess to it that it's almost perfect for that. What's the word I'm looking for? Deconstruction that King's pretty good at.
Oh yeah, I suspect there's going to be some layers to this. As pulpy as that cover looks, does it happen to mention? I don't really see the if there's an issue count. Is there?
No, just black label.
I'm sure we'll find out when we get the actual solicits.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get that next week.
I don't think he was supposed to announce it.
No,
because so he started teasing it, and then Ben Abernathy, who's like one of the editors at DC, one of the fairly prominent ones. Like it was about an hour after he teased that picture of the hands, was like, oh, announcement has been delayed until Monday, so that's two cool things that we're announcing on Monday now. And then like an hour later, King just announced put the tweet out with the cover and what the premise was. And I'm like, I don't know how much of that he was supposed to just
it's
hold off on in the end. It's
possible that he got the okay to do it. And it's this, maybe either someone changed their mind or it was a miscommunication. And
he had a scheduled tweet and forgot to cancel it.
That's also possible. Yeah, it's also possible.
It really reminded me of when Taylor kept teasing his announcement, but then he kept pushing it.
Yeah.
Because it felt like he was very excited, and DC was like, give it time. Give it a little more time.
Yeah. It's not a huge deal. Like, at the end of the day, it's a big deal that we found out about this like on the Thursday before the Monday. It's not really changing much in the grand scheme of things, but just the marketing people like, no, we had a timeline. We've got an announcement for this day and an announcement for that day, and you've ruined our timeline. So Greg Smallwood's a name that I was familiar with. So when I went to look, I was like, where do I know the name from? First thing that came up is something called Vampironica, which features Veronica Lodge as a vampire. And now I know what's on my to-read list.
I'm shocked you didn't already read that.
No, as I've read Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. That was pretty good. But the other Archie stuff outside of the early Wade Archie run, pretty untouched. So, but yeah, I'm trying to see what else I would know Smallwood from. So,
done a lot of Marvel work, I think, to be honest.
Yeah. So, this is
we'll have a look
pretty
at
exciting.
The official solicit text this next week. I don't think there's an official synopsis for this yet. It's just King's tweet, and then Newsarama's got a bunch of here's a history of the character, but we'll see what the actual pitch of the book
probably
is.
Copied and pasted straight from Wikipedia, to be honest.
Very possibly, but there you go. So Tom King Human Target book starting in October. Neat. Next up, we're getting an Aquaman and Green Arrow team up miniseries, a 7-issue book, which is called Deep Target. Now, I don't know if this is supposed to coincide with the Human Target, and this might be like a play on the words, but it's actually going to be by Brandon Thomas, who's also doing the new Aquaman mini, which is Khalid becoming Aquaman.
Khalid,
yeah.
Doctor Strange. I mean, Dr. Fate.
He's thinking of Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson Hyde.
Yeah. What am I thinking of?
Khalid.
I think Khalid is his Atlantean name in Young Justice, right?
Yeah.
Really?
No,
yeah.
Calder.
The Calder. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
There
Calder. But I flubbed, but I wasn't completely ridiculous like Matt was looking at me.
No, but there is a Khalid that exists in the DC universe. So
It was just enough for I know where Pete's got this from. I know
Yeah.
it's because that's the name he exclusively goes by
That's right.
in Young Justice.
Yeah. So sorry. Yes, Jackson.
You're fine.
But anyway, so presumably it's. I mean, after tying into that, then at least the fact that you've got the same writer doing both means that I imagine there'll be some ties between them, even if it's just background stuff. So, so what do we think? Yeah, miniseries with Green Arrow and
Strange
Aquaman.
combination. I did see during the announcement that half of the reason was just because it's both their 80th anniversaries this year, and neither of them have books ongoing. So it's like, well, let's
why not
put them together.
I feel like there could have been something fun with the title here. They could have done something like The Brave and the Wet. So, I don't know.
I don't know. Deep Target. I mean, you're mixing two things that you associate Aquaman with the deep, and of course Arrow with the target.
Okay, so, why not Deep Arrow then?
That sounds like a something that Bond's looking for in a movie. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Brandon Thomas makes me a little.
I'm yet to be convinced by him.
Yeah, but
I'm not horrified by his name. I'll say that.
Me neither.
It's not.
It's not enough to make me go, skip.
It's mostly indifference at this point.
Yeah.
But I will say I've enjoyed his Aquaman stuff more than his, like Mr. Miracle, and that type of stuff. So this is right in that wheelhouse.
His Aquaman stuff, not the Future State. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was decent. It wasn't like fantastic, but it was a fine read.
Yeah. I'll say, obviously we'll give it a try. It'd be nice to have. We don't have an Aquaman book, like you said. We don't have a Green Arrow book. It would be nice to have something worth reading with the pair of them in it. So, give it a shot, if nothing else. And then the other thing we have is we're getting a special, in October. I haven't checked to see if it's a 5-week month or if it's just because they're doing it because obviously it's Halloween time. But we're getting a long Halloween one-shot special with Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale coming back, which is kind of a big deal.
Same.
Yeah, it's one of these things where Jeff Loeb's writing quality isn't exactly consistent, and it's been a while since I'd say.
Turns out he's kind of a shitty person as well.
Yeah, so
yeah,
but it's a 48-page special, which is coming. Yeah, it's October 12th, so it's right in the middle of the month.
And it's literally been years since Sale has done any interior work.
Yeah,
was the last time Captain America white?
White, I think it was.
The last time. Oh. So yeah, this is kind of a big deal in terms of like I think Long Halloween's very important to a lot of people. There's the animated movie, like part 1 of that. Part 2 is coming out later in the summer. So clearly there's a lot of celebration going on with it. There was a sequel which was also very good, Dark Victory, which
it's like 25 this year, right?
So I haven't read that.
Yeah. It's just so we all feel old. The Long Halloween's now 25 years old.
I should take Dark Victory. I have it. I haven't read it though. I got them both on sale.
Yeah, Dark Victory's solid. That in many ways, Long Halloween is like this sort of year 2 period of Batman where he encounters all these villains.
I picked up some of the the Batman noir books.
Yeah,
I picked up a couple like dirt cheap a few months back, and one of them was Dark Victory. I'm not read it yet. Never read it before, so I'm not sure it's like the best way to experience it the first time. But...
Oh sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Dark Victory in many ways it's still the murder mystery style that the first book had, but it's very much about introducing Robin. So it's kind of like that story told in that fashion in the early days of Batman. So I don't know. I mean, it's been since I read it. Admittedly, I haven't read it as many times as I have Long Halloween, but it was good when I read it. So yeah, kind of neat. The cover that's here for it as well. A couple of covers actually, but I'm looking particularly at the white one with the more watercolored kind of with the little jack-o'-lantern in the eye. Because there's a Two-Face cover as well, which is purple, which is fine. Like, I mean, it looks like it's Tim Sale art in it, but the other one,
a Tim Sale variant as well. That one.
But the white one caught my eye a bit more, just because of the blacks with the orange eye.
Very striking.
Yeah. So neat. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to read it. Obviously, I'm not going to.
Well, I think we all kind of are, despite Loeb's reputation the last couple of years. But Tim Sale art kind of,
Yeah, I mean, it'll hopefully still be good. It's one of these weird things where you can have this disconnect with people if you don't like them as people, but you like their creations.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey,
Oh.
hey, there you go. A long Halloween special in October as well. Which, because I presume they're going to do their 100-page Halloween special, which we're probably going to ignore just because it's an extra 100 pages on whatever week.
We
it comes
always
out.
do, yeah. Well, and it's like that. It's not like they're just even anthologies. It's horror. Well, the last one was just horror versions of stuff. Because I picked that one up because it had Evilly art, and it was it wasn't what
Matt is a stunning self-parody at times.
I can't. Hey, I like what I like.
I love the idea of just random Booster Gold merch being released, and Matt'll just buy it no matter what it is. Like, here's a Booster Gold toaster. Oh, all of a sudden, Matt's got a new toaster with the Booster Gold logo on it.
Shut up and take my money. Well, let's not skip. I know Connor's not watching Loki, and I know Pete is kind of snarky about Loki, but it's basically a Booster Gold story. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, it could be a better written Booster Gold story.
I think it's pretty well written. I like it.
I disagree with that statement, but
Okay. Connor, this episode was called Journey into Mystery.
I know. I saw.
Yeah.
I've seen all the spoilers because Twitter can't help itself.
Well, here's my thing. I'm about to start muting people because if I see one more, like, look, Alligator Loki, cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm tired of seeing it on my timeline. Y'all are killing it.
I was pretty annoyed at how so yesterday, Friday, I got up about 11. Scrolled through to 11 a.m. In the UK, and Bad Batch was already spoiled.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start muting people. I'm too behind because I watch it on the treadmill on Mondays.
But bear in mind, it goes up over here at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
By 11 a.m. it was already like, oh, look at all these characters that are in this episode. I'm like, cheers to it.
Yeah. Just keep scrolling. Hockey stuff, Connor. We got the expansion draft coming. You can focus on that.
I know.
So
I've been reading some interesting articles about it.
Hockey season's over. There'll be no more hockey talk.
Do you know what's not over?
Yeah, but now it's the
what's not over?
Off-season.
Football, because it's coming home.
Yeah, not for Pete though.
No, never for Pete.
I've never understood the whole "it's coming home" thing. English people have been saying it like forever. I don't.
So wait, did real quick side quest?
That's when they invented the phrase.
Did soccer originate in England, or was it one of those things that was concurrent?
As a actual idea, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's been around for basically millennia.
Okay.
In terms of the codified set of rules that we actually use now, and the idea of a formalized league, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I know rugby started there because there's a name of an actual place, and it was rugby style football is where the name.
Yeah. But we had the first football league. The first set of written rules does come from England.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's not what "it's coming home" really means anyway. Yeah. I don't know if you've listened to the song. It's a song.
No,
about
I figured it was a nationalistic.
No, it's not at all. It's a song from the mid '90s, '96, where we hosted the Euros in England, and it was the first time we'd hosted a tournament since 1966, which is when we won the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Only time we ever won anything.
We know because England never shuts up about it.
I know. And so this it's coming home. It became sort of like, it's coming home in terms of the tournament rather than actually winning. The whole song is about how we're kind of shit. We've spent, at the time, it was 30 years just losing everything, tournament after tournament. No matter what, we fail. But you got hope anyway, and that's what the song's about.
The only thing that comes home every time is sadness.
Yeah. and look, we are in the finals of a tournament for literally the first time since '66. We have not done
honestly, my only hope.
I fully expect us to lose, but I hope we don't.
My only hope, because I don't care about sports, and I especially detest football because there's this assumption being a boy in the UK growing up that you're supposed to like it, and everyone talks about it. So I have a particularly vile hatred of it. So my only hope for this finals, this is the first time really hearing about it, to be honest, is that it is a boring game with no goals, so that everyone's miserable watching it. That is my hope.
No
But
goals
see,
does not mean ball.
you say that as someone that doesn't watch, right?
Yes.
But a no-goal game can be very exciting. Like I'm the type when I watch hockey, I like a low-scoring game that's gritty and tough and stuff. Now, granted, soccer's a little bit different because it's a much wider field. There's a lot of standing around, so I feel you. However, a 0-0 game can just be as exciting as a 7-6 game, you know.
And also because it's found that not it will go if it is a 0-0 game, it will go to penalties, and that is
because you in a tournament.
Okay. Let me rephrase this because I don't know what the qualifiers are for an exciting game because to me it all looks boring as shit.
Well, no,
So okay, let me rephrase this. Okay, here's what I hope happens. I hope it's an exceptionally dull game, but right before the finish time, right before the final whistle, I hope that England just accidentally trip and score an own goal.
Well,
and that's why they lose.
Their own goal against Denmark. So
yeah, Denmark scored an own goal.
That's my hope.
I think there has been, I don't know if it was 11 or 12 own goals at this tournament.
Well, let me make this clear.
That is more than every other Euros put together.
Let me make this clear. This is not a national thing. This is not an anti-England thing. I don't give a shit. This is a hatred of football thing. I just don't want anyone watching it to enjoy it.
So if Connor was rooting for Denmark, say, and it was Denmark versus Italy, you would care just as least, right?
Yes, I just want him to be miserable watching it. Yes. I don't care about England winning
it's
or losing.
Connor likes.
Here's a fun fact.
No, it's not Connor. It's all football fans.
Should England win against Italy, theoretically, this tournament, the only team we wouldn't have beaten that we played would be Scotland. We'd have won every other game except we drew with Scotland 0-0. That was boring.
Because that was a playing round, right? That's the
the group stage.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That would be, again, assuming that we win this game, that would be the only game that we didn't win.
William Wallace's spirit is avenged.
They didn't win either. We didn't lose it, but we didn't.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You wouldn't.
Again, I don't know about the socio-political dynamics between Scotland and England, but I feel like a draw is just as good as a win for Scotland.
I don't give a shit, but I'll tell you this. I'm fairly certain that Italian food orders on Sunday. Is this when the final is Sunday?
Yeah.
Have we said? I guarantee you there'll be an Italian spirit in the air between most of Scotland.
I know. I was reading an article from about various supermarkets how they're stocking up like various products, obviously. So naturally they're stocking up on beer, because I think for the game on Wednesday they sold double the normal amount they do for this time of year in that one day, and that was a weekday. So this is a weekend. But they also said
he's not allowed to go and get buy beer just now. He has to get delivered.
I have to get delivered.
Yeah, but still, that's a hefty delivery.
I do have a crate of cider delivered.
See?
I'm not gonna lie. They did say in like Scotland, they're actually stocking up on things like Prosecco. Because of the Italian connotations with that.
That's hilarious. Well, I know most of my Twitter friends that aren't English are rooting for Italy, and all my Twitter friends that are English are rooting for England.
The entirety of Europe, except for England, is rooting for Italy. I think the only place that might not be is Gibraltar, but they're kind of weird case.
Yeah, well, as a Golden Knights fan, I know what that's like because every time the playoffs start, everyone hates us. So
that is England in a major tournament. Everyone hates. And the thing is, like, we have not been playing pretty football to watch. It's if you watch, like, for example, the Spanish side, lots of really free-flowing passes. It's really enjoyable and engaging to watch. This England team has not been like that. It has been grind out, get one goal, maybe two at most. There was the one game that was the exception. Just grind, do the bare minimum, and then defend like hell. So it's not been like it's kind of been to neutral fans kind of boring to watch the England side because they just lock it down, but it's getting results, so it's kind of hard to complain.
Hey, I mean, the Islanders rode that to the conference finals.
Yeah. That's kind of the equivalent here. Just lock it down.
Oh, yep.
What sport
I
are the
just love how much
Islanders?
heat. What's that?
What sport are the Islanders?
That's hockey.
Who made that face? Yeah, how would I know that? I don't think I know the Islanders
Because
are
it's
hockey.
Matt.
No,
What else
I
is it?
didn't expect you to.
And they're
If I'm
called the
talking about it,
Islanders.
probably-
If there's one thing I don't think of when I think of ice hockey, is an island. I
You
think
mean
of an
like
island.
Iceland?
I mean, yes, Iceland exists, but when you see the word island, I think of like a tropical island. I think of beaches. I think of
this is
palm trees.
they're like that because they play in Long Island, hence the Islanders.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll think of ice.
Anyways, boring hockey. That was their whole thing, and it's fine.
Yeah, that's England at this tournament.
Yeah.
And I don't really expect us to win. The Italians have been
It's Italy.
fantastic.
They're a powerhouse.
Well, that's the thing. 3 years ago at the World Cup just gone,
Yeah.
they didn't even qualify. They were terrible. Like, they were truly
Really?
atrocious. Yeah, it
Who
was
won last
the
time?
first time that who won? France.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like, they didn't even qualify. It was like their lowest point in their footballing history. They'd never not qualified
They've
before.
come back.
Got a new manager, reorganized it, and now going into this game, they haven't been beaten in 32 games. So
Enjoy being the underdog.
yeah, should be a good game though. Like, they're pretty two
Good.
objectively good sides for once.
Yeah. Well, they always say defense wins championships. At least that's here. So
Yeah, like it's like two of the best defenders in the world, two of the best centre backs.
there you go.
Well, this is
Cool.
getting far
Comics,
too-
let's go.
This is getting far too nitty-gritty. It's disastrous. I hate it. It's dull. It's boring. No,
It could be worse. We could be talking about basketball to where it's two teams nobody wanted in the final, and everyone's complaining about how bad it is. So,
I mean, but it could be. We could be talking about synchronized swimming right now, which I feel like I'd get into
Sure.
the art form a bit more than I would.
Hey, give it 2 weeks. The Olympics will be on. You
Picking
can
up
talk
all
about
the
synchronized
facts.
swimming all you want.
Oh, that's
when
right. The Olympics are coming up. That's right.
I had I had surgery the summer of 04, and I was up all night. Can't sleep. So, surgical, whatever. I got really into Olympic power walking, which let me tell you guys, when you can't sleep, Olympic power walking puts you right out.
Wait, you just get into doing it, or were you watching?
Watching.
Okay.
Because I would wake up in the middle of the night because my surgery area would start to hurt, and so you wake up and you need to go to sleep, and there's nothing on at 2:30 in the morning. So you just put on Olympic power walking, and a guy gets disqualified because he bent his knee too much, and technically that's a jog. And you go right back out. So that's what I mean. I
that
really
sounds like a
enjoy it.
really anal category because they have to police it to that extent.
There was that, and there's a sport called handball, which I don't know if I had a fever dream, but it was like you basically put two trash cans on a basketball court, and you pass a volleyball around to try to score it into basically the garbage cans. Again, don't know if I imagined this.
That sounds like a real thing. I feel like I've seen something like that.
Haze, but I watched it in Australia. It was really good. So
that's the funny thing about the Olympics is because it always changes location. It's always on a different part of the day depending on where it is in your time zone. So there's some Olympics that are on at a fairly normal time for like daytime viewing, and sometimes they're on at midnight till 8 in the morning.
Yeah, when they were in England, it was nice. We could watch a lot because the time difference isn't that much. Versus what year was it? Where was the last ones? In 2016. Was that England?
No, we were 2012.
That was Tokyo?
No, that's next one. Is it Brazil?
No, that's this year. Shoot. Either way, I know that one was rough. So we missed a lot. Ash likes to watch swimming. She was a swimmer. So we lock in. She's been watching a lot of those qualifiers lately.
It was Brazil. I was right.
Okay, it was Brazil. Yeah, that one was a little bit wonky just because of the...
Tokyo is going to be a weird one for us.
Yeah, well, not for me and Pete. Well, I don't know. Pete watches as much Japanese wrestling as I do.
Japanese wrestling though is a nighttime thing, whereas I imagine the Olympics in Tokyo is going to be during the day Tokyo time, so it's going to be throughout the night.
Yeah,
you would think Yeah, you would think, but there's some we'll save for prime time.
Because Japanese wrestling, if I do happen to catch that live, it'll be like 8 a.m. our time
for you guys.
So it's like, it's more of a get up early and watch thing than it is a stay up late and watch thing.
They're doing the G1 this year during my birthday month, so my poor wife.
Is that later than usual? I feel like it's usually on by now.
Yeah. So no, it's usually in July.
Yeah.
But because of COVID last year and now COVID again this year, they're pushing it. But that said, I've kind of heard rumblings and rumors that they might do the two groups, one in the U.S., one in Japan.
All right. Okay.
And maybe have a co-branding, which, I mean, we have the U.S. title match this week over there on Dynamite. So
I won't tangent us off. I'll just say I enjoyed Dynamite this past week.
It was a very good episode of Dynamite, and Britt Baker calling TK out.
Oh my god, that was shots fired. That was
so. Pete, it's well known to Pete and my other friends that I was a huge Sasha Banks fan.
Yes.
But her social media presence over the last couple months has left a sour taste. So Britt's become my go-to favorite lady, and she doesn't disappoint.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, Britt's fantastic.
I might even get. I'd maybe even get that DMD shirt if it wasn't like extortionately expensive.
Yeah.
Stupid shipping to other countries. But anyway,
yeah, I know. Cool. Let's talk books.
Yeah, comics. All right. Batman, issue 110, James Tynion the fourth, writing with Jorge Jiminez on the art. So, I'm hitting things. So, this is kind of your big, the city's now in peril, everything's hitting the fan.
Mm-hmm.
The peacekeepers, the magistrate have been given full carte blanche, effectively, by Mayor Nakano, and this is all playing out as Batman's fighting Peacekeeper 1, and Oracle's trying to basically gather the Bat family. We know Nightwing's on his way. We know everyone else is sort of getting into position, but
it's really the prelude to Fear State, right? Like we're putting the pieces in where I really like the scene where Babs tells Dick like, no, you could stay in Bloodhaven. He goes, you know I can't do that, right? Like there's an emergency in Gotham. I have to be there for Bruce. And so I want to
give some credit to because all these issues of this arc have opened with this Scarecrow's got Batman somewhere in the future.
The horrible lettering section.
Yeah. And they've not necessarily. I mean, they've been fine, and I've liked them as a recurring tease because obviously we're building up to that. But I want to give this one a bit of credit for being kind of memorable because of the he gets out into the field and sees the giant Scarecrow. I thought that page was quite good, and it kind of made this one a bit more memorable than the previous examples.
It definitely is a big fear toxin moment that we haven't had yet, right? Because it's kind of just been Bruce in the chair and, with his own thoughts. Here he finally gets out, but it's worse than we thought. I think a big, gigantic Scarecrow.
Sometimes comics, certainly in the past, have overused the TV newscaster thing. I think this issue does it quite well because we've been building up to this idea that we're getting multiple newscasters talk about what's going on in the city as we're just getting glimpses of Batman's fight with Peacekeeper 1 and just like it being a brutal fight where he's barely surviving, he's not quite making through it in the way it normally does. Mixed in with all the various things going on with Oracle and Nightwing and Montoya trying to talk Nakano out of his crazy plan and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It builds a feeling, like there's a vibe of the city. Like it's giving this vibe, and Tynion's been very good this arc of building that growing vibe throughout. And then, of course, the Miracle Molly stuff.
So that's what really stuck out for me, just because it feels like Tynion has a point of view he wants out. And just this whole idea that, like, technically the Unsane Collective aren't doing anything wrong, but they're going to be made the scapegoats because they are so different. And just with the way that politics have gone in this country over the last 4 years, that feels very true to life, right? Like, we're going to scapegoat these people because they seem dangerous, when really what they're actually about isn't. So just that whole scene with Miracle Molly talking with the kid, just Tynion really working on all cylinders.
Because the structural issues, you have all this dancing around the fight itself, all these other things are going on, and eventually it hones in on Batman and Peacekeeper 1 in their actual fight, which is obviously very beautifully done. I did roll my eyes a little bit that Batman sets off a lot of little explosions that are in Morse code so that Ghostmaker can read it. But I will say the panel of it actually happening did look quite pretty. I did quite like the actual art of it.
Now, do you think Tynion maybe over-explained it a little bit just so people wouldn't be lost?
Maybe.
Because I actually kind of would have preferred just him setting off the explosions and Ghostmaker going, "Oh, that's Morse code," and everyone kind of rolling their eyes like.
Just leaving it at that,
like,
yeah.
No, it wasn't. Just because I just get the vibe from Ghostmaker that he is the Bat God. Like every issue I have with the Bat God shows up in Ghostmaker. So I don't know. I just kind of wish.
It's okay because he's not Batman.
Well, yeah, and it tones down the Batman stuff. So like, again, Batman setting off these small explosives throughout the building makes a lot of sense.
It's a very. I think the action sequence itself, though, is very visceral, and I think the art does a lot to make it feel really spectacular. I like that it feels like he just gets out and no more. And the whole double thing where Batman jumps out, Ghostmaker jumps out of his plane, and they do this thing where they grab each other. I think that page is really good because it's split in two. It's like a vertical slice, right? There's a couple of pals at the bottom, but for the most part, it's just this vertical slice. And I think what it does here with the coloring that I really like is that they're in the same location effectively, but because if the camera, as it were, is looking down at Batman, it's all the orange of the city and the lights and the glow. But because the camera's looking up at Ghostmaker, it's mostly the blues of the sky. So they look very different, and it really contrasts between them but they're actually in the same place, and there's no real tricks to it. It's just, of course, these have very different colors to them, given the directions.
Well, yeah,
and again, the next page as well between Peacekeeper and Batman.
Yeah, with the fire, and the rain.
Yeah.
In color theory, aren't blue and orange opposites?
Yep.
So that's why they contrast. Yeah, so
that's why the movie posters of the mid-2000s are very heavily with that scheme.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, but yeah, no, just the colors really working hard to make this look good.
Is it still Bel Air color in these?
I think so. Let's go back and look.
No, it's not. Tim and Maury.
Oh. Okay, Maury.
Well, Blair's got a lot of books to do, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coloring's very good.
I think Belair's covering Detective. That's maybe where I'm getting that from.
Yeah. It's good. Do you know what? I'm noticing a trend here that I don't know if everyone agreed that this is an editorial thing, but I do love it. Is that Babs seems to be constantly eating when she's like at Oracle. I'm just noticing she's casually eating a burger at one point in this issue.
Yeah, I feel that's more Jiminez giving her something to do. So instead of just drawing her talking. I don't know, but maybe that's Tynion also going like, hey, Babs is enjoying a burger here, a donut here.
Maybe she's a stress eater.
That very much could be.
I mean, regardless of what it means, it's kind of funny, but just having her doing something with her hands just gives it a bit of character beyond just talking. So maybe it's just as simple as that. It's like, to have her doing something with her hands. Oh, she's eating something. And that even that adds to the facial expression as well, because she's also chewing as she's talking.
I do know that Brad Pitt. I
Brad Pitt.
His words. Yeah. He eats a lot in movies because he knows that having something to do with his hands adds to the character quality. So, like, especially in Ocean's 11, Rusty Ryan always has food in his hand somewhere. So, or a soda or something. So that made me think of that. But no, Jimenez's Babs is a whole different level. Like, once we get a Batgirl book again, let's throw Jiminez on an issue or an arc.
Just hoping. I should get a new outfit, so I mean, there's a chance that we're building up to it. The big cliffhanger, though, for the main story is that Peacekeeper 1 does go to where the Unsane Collective, Insanity Collective, whatever they're called.
Insanity.
Yeah. They go, and American Mali basically immediately is like, hey, look, we're unarmed, we're not going to fight, like, hands up in the air, there's innocent people, there's kids here that we, like, look after, and, we're not resisting. And Peacekeeper 1 calls Simon and says, they're resisting, requesting permission to use lethal force. And he's like, permission granted. And again, it's that vertical split, it's the Two-Face style design of the page.
Again, the blue and the orange coming in here.
Yeah. So it's a theme that's playing throughout the issue, so it feels it's a very focused issue story-wise, actually, because it's all focused on this fight playing out as the city's falling apart around it. And I say falling apart, maybe more accurately, is the power move being taken to get, for the magistrate to actually put into this place for the authority.
Because on the surface, there's not actually, the city's not falling apart like in Joker War.
No.
Right? It's coming apart from the inside out.
They just think it is. That's the kind of the point. Is that the population think that they're at this threat level, but not really.
I also want to talk about like Tynion making me like Harley even more. Just his characterization.
Oh, that panel where she's talking about Mahoney.
Yeah. Oh, how he was a shitty guard even long before she was Harley. Yeah.
Yeah, but even by Arkham standards, he was a sadist.
And then it ends with this city's effed up in the head, and I can give that diagnosis because I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
And also because I'm effed in the head too.
Yeah, like just that, and just the bat thing, and then I do count them out to make sure that's the word they're supposed to be. So again, the letterist, letterer, letterer. Which one is it? Letterer. There we go.
I don't worry about it too. I just like whatever word seems to fit the context of the sentence, I go with in my head.
Yeah, but like sometimes for me it gets distracting when it's supposed to be like when you read around the context and it's just a censor. You know, it's when they have that. I like when they have the word in mind and then they actually censor the word. So here, that's what it seems like. It seems to me like when Tynion turns in the script, right? It is written out, and then the letterer puts the bat symbols in.
Put it in like italics or something, so the letterer knows.
Yeah,
please
exactly.
This.
Yeah. So instead of just the King version where it's a bunch of,
Yeah, I think to be fair, even when it doesn't match up with the number of letters, I do still think the writer has a specific word in mind. They're just not concerned with actually representing each individual letter with the digit.
But I like when it's that way. It makes it makes it feel to me, because it feels like real speech then, because you make the brain eye connection.
It's the sort of thing as well with the length of a word, just as you read it, determines how long the sentence is. Right, and so if it's a long, a long swear word that they're blanking, and it's only like 3 of the symbols, it makes it feel like the moment passes quicker than it should.
Right,
it could kind of ruin the flow.
The impact.
Yeah, that's basically the issue. Really solid. Feels that things are heightened. I think last issue we kind of described as a very middle issue. That's really feel like it was ramping up for the end of Act 2 or. Catapults and obviously it's an interesting thing to say about an arc like this, because this arc is very much entirely a prelude to the next arc, because the next arc's the main part. But it does feel like it's an effective build. I'm enjoying the run up to Fear State. Very, very hard to complain, and the art is very solid.
Jiminez.
Yeah, they even mentioned they also talked a lot about the colors, and we talked a lot about the contrast and all that. But I think even the fact that Miracle Molly and her design is very colorful with lots of different colors. I think that's actually maybe even an intentional thing here, where the city's split into these different colors. Oracle's Watchtower is always green because it's always the green glow in the monitors. A lot of the other stuff is blue. A lot of the city, whether it be fire or the lights, is orange. I think the idea that you've got this character who's saying she wants to make the city better is literally dosed in all these different colors is probably a very intentional thing in the coloring design of this.
I mean, even like the stuff like Peacekeeper being blue with the red eyes, and then it gives it the red glow. It's police colors, right?
Yeah,
it's the blue and the red.
Yeah, but it's very, very organized coloring. Whereas Miracle Molly's no, this is a splash of everything. This is meant to represent everyone. It's meant to be every part of the city. It's meant to be a future for everyone. So it's just a smart color design. I don't think anyone's reading the backup anymore, right?
Oh no, I read it.
Oh, you okay? In that case, we'll rate this.
Monster.
We'll rate this, and then you can talk about the backup. Then, what are you giving the main story, Matt?
I'm giving it an 8.
Connor?
Same.
I will also give it a very solid 8. So, Matt, all right, we go on. What's the backup?
Yeah, so this is continuing Ghostmaker's journey against all these different villains, and so this time, what's his name? He's a crocodile guy. I'm trying to find his name. But basically how they got into a fight a long time ago, and that Ghostmaker kind of threw everything he had at him, and the fight lasted hours, but basically he was able just to wear him down, and that's what Ghostmaker is doing here to Lady Midas, and that it's going to be her undoing like it was his. So Crocodile Guy kind of is seeing exactly what Ghostmaker is doing. And at the end, she collapses all the tunnels around Ghostmaker, so it looks like he's kind of done for, but I'm sure he's not, right? But it's mostly a fight scene between him and this monster. God, what's his name?
Alistair Gator?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's Instigator. There you go.
I was just joking,
Instigator.
but I forgot that close.
And then he talks about that he's fought everybody in Southeast Asia, from like the Great 10 to some of these other heroes throughout there. And that Ghostmaker is the one that gives him the most trouble. But yeah, so that was it's okay. Again, I don't like the Ghostmaker character as much, but Tynion is kind of showing us who he is here. Also, it's interesting that we still don't see his eyes. So in this fight scene, he strips out of his suit to, because Instigator kind of tells him, "You're nothing without that suit." So he goes down, but still puts like a piece of it over his eyes. So he's kind of fighting blind. So I'm sure there's going to be some kind of revelation around that, or if it's just to still hide his identity, even though we don't know what his name is or what he looks like. So it's still an odd thing. But yeah, art's same as it has been. I mean, Ortiz draws good monsters and fun action. So yeah, it's good. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, cool. All right. Justice League 64, Brian Michael Bendis writing with Steve Pugh on the art. And I have to start this by saying this book pissed me off within the first like 3 pages. So the narrative on these reviews up until now has been something along the lines of it's all right, it's not great, but Matt's been kind of upset how much Naomi is kind of the central character versus it being a Justice League book, and how it feels like Bendis is just doing his thing in a Justice League setting rather than the other way around. And I was mostly okay with that. Whatever, it's fine. Because I still like Naomi. I like Naomi's book, and I'm okay with this being a Naomi book that's just called Justice League, and I can live with that. Within even with the first page of the book, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Within the first page of the book, yeah, it's the first 2-page spread. Bendis brings in something else from another one of his DC books, and shoves it down our throats. But in this case, I didn't like this thing in the first place. And that is the Sinmar aliens and the planet.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell me he brought in JRJR.
No. No, he's back at Marvel. Yeah. Marvel got him back. He's went home. He's went home.
It's coming home this time. It's Ramita. So I reading this, I instantly thought of you because I remembered how much you hated that.
Yep.
That whole arc, and just again, giving Bendis Justice League just to keep telling the stories he was already telling. I guess that's fine because it's not like Justice League's been the flagship for a long time. I almost prefer it when it's these small adventures.
It's almost
that
the
don't
point
tie
where
into stuff.
Why don't they just give Bendis a book called The Bendis Book and just like do all the Bendis stories over there? Don't take just
DCU by Bendis.
Yeah. It's weird because this came in. And it's like, okay, we're doing this Sinmar stuff, and they bring up the fact that their champion tried to kidnap Superman, tried to kill him, blah blah blah, and they're coming to Earth, and that's kind of what the issue ends with, is like, oh, they're here and whatever. A lot of the middle of the issue is Naomi with the others, and there's a little subplot with Green Arrow and Black Canary. And the subplot with Green Arrow and Black Canary, I was mostly into. Although, admittedly, it did tie in a little bit to Checkmate at the end, which did make me roll my eye. And I'm enjoying Checkmate, but it did make me realize a little bit, because I'm like, really, Bendis, can you do anything that isn't tying into another Bendis book, please?
So we hit 3 different Bendis things in this issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see, but this is what he did on Action. This is what he did, through Ed. This is his style, and I almost feel it's unfair to say that I'm tired of it, but like I just want him to tell a clean Justice League story that's just Justice League.
Well, this is the frustrating thing, because the Green Arrow and Black Canary stuff I was mostly enjoying because it was kind of sweet. It was them, Green Arrow saying, "Hey, we're in Coast City. Let's go and watch the sunset," and they're kind of flirting, and they realize they're being followed by a sniper, right? And they're kind of like talking to each other, and they're still kind of flirting and whatever, and it's like, what if they can hear us though? We're planning like our attack, our way to like get around the sniper. And Oliver's like, then they'll know that we're cute, we're adorable in a crisis then. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this banner. I'm enjoying this. This feels like it fits these two. It's very playful. And it kind of, it's like when we had that Sinmar plot in Superman. The thing I liked in that story was the Lois and Lana stuff that was like the subplot, and I was kind of getting flashbacks to that, but I was like, I don't. The fact that this is arc 2 after we have that first arc where it kind of, I don't know, felt a bit flat by the end, despite me being okay with the Naomi stuff, but obviously you weren't as hot in that. Going straight into this second arc and it's starting with, oh, here's something you really didn't like from the Superman run. I'm like, oh, like, what's the third arc going to be? Is the third arc going to be something else from Legion that you never got to finish?
Yeah. Feels like it.
Is
you have all the United Planet stuff here.
Did you try checking the solicits?
And then Connor Kent's going to show up in arc 4, talking about his farm from Gem World. Is that going to be arc number 4?
Yeah, maybe. He is on Suicide Squad. He might need a reason to live.
It's so funny. It's so funny because I genuinely like a lot of Bendis' work, but it is kind of feeling more and more like his DC side of stuff is dwindling to the point where I
mostly enjoyed his Superman in action runs, right?
Yeah,
like, for the most part.
But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't. I'm at the point now where I'm actively not looking forward to his work now.
I said this if it wasn't for
timing.
If it wasn't for the Justice League Dark story, I would have dropped this. Just because, and that's not to say there's not good stuff in there. Like you said, the Black Canary and Green Arrow stuff here. Even Naomi's parents coming to visit her at the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, that was sweet. Yeah.
However, let's not forget, her dad is from Ran. So, like, him being involved with the United Planets, so he shouldn't be this starstruck, I guess. I don't know.
Well, the United Planets is a relatively new thing, though. He's not been involved with that.
Right, but he is from Ran and fought. He was brought here fighting a Thanagarian.
He's been a house dad for 20 years or whatever it's been. Yeah, or 15, 6, whatever age Naomi is. She's 16, I think. Yeah. But and Naomi's hesitant to attack Aquaman in training, and everyone's telling her, no, this is, you have to do it. You have to do hand-on-hand practice.
Again, I keep feeling like he's deliberately not showing us her power set. And I'm getting frustrated by it. Because every time it happens off screen. And it's starting to feel like it's only going to be disappointing. Because I feel like we know she's a powerhouse. But I can't describe what her powers are exactly.
Energy, pets, and blasts.
Sure? Is she just super strong and can fly? Is that what it is? Is she just like unleashing on Aquaman? Like, I don't know.
Well, she has a temper, because that's the whole joke of that, is that they keep telling her to just hit him, and she's refusing, and then she gets like a temper in the moment, like an angry moment, and like blasts him with something.
And again, I feel like Bendis keeps telling us that, but we haven't seen that anywhere else. I don't remember her having a temper in Naomi, do you?
No.
Yeah. So again, show don't tell. That's what I learned in writing and in other classes, and I feel like Bendis is just telling us this stuff.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this moment itself is showing it. It's just it does kind of feel out of nowhere for the most part. I think it maybe was mentioned in the last arc that she lost herself a little bit when she got angry with the the villain, but yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. That side of it's not bothering me. The Sinmar stuff though, where the cliffhanger is just one of the Sinmar aliens showing up. I just
the Sinmar stuff sucked.
It did suck, and I
don't know why we need more of it.
And immediately, it put me in the wrong footing. And this is the funny thing. Unlike you, I do not have the backup to keep me clinging to this book. So if I feel this again for a couple more issues, I might end up dropping this.
You just let me know, because I'll skip Justice League just to keep reading Justice League Dark. Yeah. I'll save some time.
So while there was some individual things to kind of like in this issue, I was mostly annoyed. I was mostly it set me off in the wrong mood right away, and it just made me go, oh, I don't know. I feel like, and Bendis' stuff doesn't feel like it's that important to DC. It feels like everything else that's going on, is at least in the same world as all the Infinite Frontier stuff. It feels like all the Bat Family stuff is connected. Bendis' Justice League and Checkmate feel kind of separated from everything.
Are you suggesting that? And I don't. This is that sounded like I was going to make some snarky comment, but Bendis is kind of right now the equivalent to like the Hickman X-Men stuff at Marvel, where it's just off doing its own thing.
Kinda. I mean, maybe Morrison Green Lantern would be a comparison as well. I don't know.
I felt like that was by design, where I don't feel this is by design. You know,
Yeah.
I felt like Morrison went, I have an idea for Green Lantern, but I need to do it just on its own.
I mean,
And they were kind of like,
I'm not
okay.
trying to say the current editors don't like Bendis or anything like that, but I do wonder because Bendis was brought in under the previous, was Didio and all that. I do wonder if there's an element of, okay, now we've got all of our new plans. We don't really know what to do with Bendis, who was brought in with this big contract or whatever. So let's just give him a couple of things to go and do on his own.
How long do you reckon they signed him for?
I don't remember.
I would say 5 years at least. I'd say it'd be a 5-year contract. That'd be my guess. I'd guess 5 years minimum.
Remember how much we giggled at the Bendis is coming ads?
That's still funny to be fair.
Yeah. What I'm saying. But yeah, no, but it's very much, and we shouldn't be surprised because Hickman was a student of Bendis. Like he came up under Bendis. His Secret Warriors book was the first thing he did, and that was spinning out of New Avengers. You know,
wasn't that also Rucka though? Secret Warriors.
Secret Warriors.
It was Hickman and someone, right? It wasn't just Hickman.
No, I think it was just Hickman.
Was it just Hickman?
I think so. Let me look.
Someone fact check this.
That introduced, yeah.
I could have sworn there was a second writer on Secret Warriors, but I could be wrong. Not like I
remember I introduced Quake. Yeah, no, I read that. That was pretty good. Let's see. No, just Jonathan Hickman and art by Stefano Caselli.
Fair enough. For some reason, I could have sworn there was a second writer on that book, but
well, Bendis started with him, but I feel like that started, and then he kind of like Snyder and Tynion first, kind of.
Because I feel like because I haven't read that, but my impression I always got from Secret Warriors is that it's Hickman, but it's kind of Hickman before he became full Hickman. So
so for me, it's readable.
Yeah, so it's when you get to like Fantastic Four where Hickman really became Jonathan Hickman,
right?
In terms of his superhero stuff, anyway.
Dense, ultra scientific nonsense.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I did read a lot of his Avengers, so I read enough to know that I don't like him. I read enough.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just Marquez's art's good, right?
Oh sure. I mean, it's not Marquez on this.
Oh, it's not.
It's Steve Pugh.
Oh shoot! It is Steve Pugh.
And it was different. I could tell some of the faces that it was different.
Pugh's pretty good though.
Pugh's not bad.
Yeah. Maybe because did Marquez do the cover? I remember seeing his name.
Possibly. Yeah. I'm not looking at it right now, but that would be a reasonable expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing. This is double shipping this month and next, and like I'm sure you're happy about that for Just Like Dark because it means you get 20 pages of that.
It is a Marquez cover, by the way.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, that's why.
But like, I don't know. That makes me even more like. I mean, I'll read the next one, but I have to admit it's on shaky ground right now. This issue is put it on shaky ground.
It's kind of funny how Pete was like the biggest defender of the book, right? Out of us. I mean, and then in the case of one issue, he's just gone, oh, this might be gone now.
Well, here's the thing. I was the biggest defender, but it wasn't like I was defending it because I thought it was like a 9 out of 10. I was defending it on the grounds of I think it's perfectly fine and readable.
Yeah. I just mean in contrast. Obviously, I despised it and was not reading it by choice.
Yes.
Matt was kind of mixed at best at times, and Pete was like, "No, it's good, it's fine, it's solid." And now all of a sudden, like one issue later,
I'm out.
Yeah, Cinema, shit. So the Cinema stuff was terrible.
That's all it took. Just one issue, and I imagine the way you feel about this is the way, presumably, a lot of the internet felt, with the Naomi stuff in the first arc.
But here's the thing. Again, it wasn't the quality of the Naomi stuff. It just felt like they were wedging Naomi into Justice League.
I wasn't accusing you specifically, Matt. Just gotcha. I know in general.
But I don't want to get the branded with that I don't, because I do like Naomi. I just want Naomi to be able to be on her own and not wedged into Justice League too soon. That's all.
But I'll be honest, part of it kind of feels like DC decided someone up the pipeline, whoever it may be, decided that Naomi season 1 didn't sell well enough to justify another miniseries, and they said you can do your story, but you have to do it in the confinements of another name.
You know what though? As much as I love Justice League Dark, a Naomi backup would be fine too.
Oh sure, yeah.
You know, but put her in backup.
Best of both worlds. You can have a Naomi backup in this, and just give us a Justice League Dark book.
That's true, but yeah, I'm a little worried about Ram V going to Marvel and us losing him.
No, he had plans with Marvel a long time ago as well. Like things that got cancelled because of the pandemic. He was meant to do like tie-ins to whatever event they had last year, like a Thor tie-in. So I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I mean, between Catwoman and Swamp Thing, so even though Justice League Dark got relegated to being a backup, it's not like they gave him 2 other books. So I mean,
I just feel like those books aren't selling as much as we would want them to, as much as we love them.
Oh yeah, we wish they were selling more.
And I just worry. That's all.
I think it's worth noting though that both books are critical hits, like to quite extreme degrees.
It could lead to him getting like a bigger name. Like once he's done with this Catwoman run or something, like maybe they'll say, "Hey." Like, I mean, I don't know who he'd give him to, but like, I don't know. Let's say, hey, it's time for a new Green Lantern book now, or maybe it's time for a new Nightwing writer. Maybe Taylor's done by that point. I don't know.
Ram V Wonder Woman.
Oh sure, I could see it.
Yeah.
I think what you got to remember is, one, they keep giving him spots in like the anthologies as well.
Yeah.
Like consistently, he kind of has a story here or there. He's, his books, maybe they're not the biggest sellers, but they're pretty consistent sellers, if nothing else, and critical darlings. And also, just in part of this, from the the really cynical side of it, DC looking at their lineup of talent. It's good to have diversity in general. Like right now, that looks good from a PR perspective for them. They want as much as possible.
Yeah. So no, I suspect Ram V will keep getting bigger things in the same way that Taylor has risen through the same way that Tynion has risen through the ranks and getting bigger things. It wouldn't surprise me. So, all right. Well, this has all been a bit of a tangent because the issue of Justice League itself wasn't that interesting. Matt, what do you give it the mid story?
It's 6.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give it a 6 because it's not bad. It's just the Sinmar stuff. It just immediately put me in a wrong mood, and yeah, okay. All right, you talk about Justice League Dark then. I know you're all excited.
So we get payoff here to Elnara, who's the 13th Knight, and her and Batman take out that cult, and she compliments Batman on his armor being so flexible and nice, and you kind of get the vibe that she doesn't realize what century she's in, which is kind of funny. And we get to the Justice League Dark section, and they are, let's see, I gotta think through it. Okay, nope. This is just the Elnara stuff. My brain's been real bad. So it's the most of this story, it's called The Eternal Night. But it's her teaming up with Batman, and the one part with the Justice League Dark is like a kind of like a prophecy that's going on. So it shows, that Khalid and Kirk are trying to, get to the bottom of these visions that the helm of Naboo showed them, and that they've added Ragman officially to the Justice League Dark. And he kind of hints to Zatanna that he knows her secret about the Upside Down Man. And in fact, because she's like, oh, I'm sure that you're only here to feed that suit. And he goes, well, yeah, I am, but I also want to help. And, we all learn to live with the darkness because, they have a way of turning us upside down, and her eyes get big. And that's when it cuts back to Batman fighting this cult who seem to have like psionic powers. So they kind of put him into this this vision of Gotham on fire, and almost like hell has come there, and Elnara comes back and saves him. And then you come to find out that there's someone named Raney or Singh, and he's trapped in his own body. He's the one that's giving them, the cult, kind of their power. And it cuts there. So he's locked in. He's got what looks like Brainiac, the Brainiac symbol on his forehead. But he's this dude strapped into a chair with all these cables and stuff coming out of him, long beard. And he says that he's trapped in his own body. He needs help. Art here is Sumet Kumar. So again, we go from Zermanico to Sumet Kumar. Not a bad trade. I like Kumar. Draws Batman pretty well. I mean, we know that from the Man-Bat book, right? Action scenes are drawn pretty well, but yeah, it's a solid chapter. Kicks off the next part. No Merlin stuff really here. Little of the Justice League, but still pushes, or Justice League Dark, but pushes the story forward. So I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10.
All right, cool. Green Lantern issue 4. Geoffrey, Thorne, Tom Raney, and Marco Santucci on the art. This is a book that I would describe as rough around the edges, and I don't necessarily love everything about it or how it's told, but I'm constantly of interest in what it's actually doing in terms of just the world. So once again, it's split into 2. You have the John Stewart side, which is these alien slavers are trying to take people from this planet. So it's kind of an action issue from his side of things, where he's taking on these guys in a fight. He realizes that their weapons are being powered by the ship that's floating up above. So he traps one down a Faraday cage. There's like a sort of chamber which is used to shield signals.
Yeah, I love that he goes, on Earth we call it a Faraday cage, but on was it Sergilon? It's a trap. That's such an action movie. Like that's something I imagine Martin Riggs saying in Lethal Weapon. So
I can't imagine Martin Riggs talking about a Faraday cage because it's
no, but maybe I don't know, but someone like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. The loose cannon type.
Something where it's a slight sci-fi bent. You can imagine talking about a Faraday cage. So yeah, and he fights this alien. He depowers all the weapons by going up to the ship, and that lets the locals fight back. And yeah, it's kind of a simple story that plays off what this is, kind of him becoming kind of a hero to these people, and all the rest of it.
But it drops some pretty serious implications here.
It does, because when he gets up to the ship, he finds out that they didn't come here for them. This is actually this world's too far out the place, out of the way to come just to steal some
just
people.
To pick up slaves, because the way that they do things is like it's cost effectiveness, and they're too far out of the way. That's why they've kind of been left alone. But so the fact that John crash landed there is what brought them. And they're just taking them as collateral.
Yeah, they're going to take them anyway because, well, they might as well since they're here. But they're actually here because there's a bounty on him. And when John's in the ship, he sees a jar full of Green Lantern rings, and he hears the computer just saying over and over again, Green Lantern Alif Khan, bounty closed. Green Lantern Zolal, bounty closed. It's just a list of Green Lantern bounties that have been closed.
So, did you notice that the head that's talking, that looks like Stell, right? The robot Green Lantern.
Yeah, I could have told you what the name was, but I recognized it was a helmet of a robot,
And when you go through some of these names, Thorne is killing off major Green Lantern characters. Now, granted, no body, no death, right? And it just says bounty closed, but you're assuming it means death. But you got on this page Vath Sarn, who was the Rainian that was introduced in the Green Lantern Corps book way back in the day. You also have where's it? Aricia, bounty closed or confirmed dead on that one. Eolandi, who's been located, so she's still around. But Isomat Cole confirmed dead. Rotwap Fan, who was located, but
you're shifting into the next page because there's a nice transition here that needs to be pointed out. Because so you got a page where John's sitting on this ship and he's listening to this, and all of the names on this page all just say bounty closed because it's coming from this computer, the robot head. And then you flip the page and you get a very similar page that's flipped of Joe sitting on Oa listening to just the computer on Oa. And it's basically actually I think it's the Yellow Lantern.
Something
I don't know.
must be.
Anyway, so she's listening to, and this is giving her, it's the same kind of thing, but it's a little bit more specific, where it's confirming certain lanterns are dead. It brings up Kyle and Guy and just says they're missing. I think yeah. So it's this nice transition between the two stories, which then pushes out of this, and we see that when the power battery went, all of the cells in the prison area all opened
up,
but they've managed to get about 70% of them and keep them contained. All the biggest and nastiest ones are there, but about 30% have gotten out. So that might lead to some little stories.
I like that. Even though everything was kind of powered by the central battery, the Guardians were smart enough that they kept the big bads on their own power system, which that was a fun wrinkle. Also, I didn't notice this till looking back through. Joe's suit isn't made by the Ring. She puts it back on.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting tweak on her ring too.
And what's interesting as well is that she kind of makes Kelly also put on like more of an actual Green Lantern top.
Uniform.
Yeah. And she kind of complains about it a little bit, and she wants to go and be with Simon, but Simon's the one doing all this prisoner cleanup detail. Yeah. And she's like, "No, you're coming with me. We're going to go check out some stuff. We're going to try," because the Guardians are in pain. The Guardians are like going through this weird existential pain that they're living through, and they're not really sure what it is. It's connected to the power battery going. They might already be dying, if not dead already. It's all very mysterious and all the rest of it. But they're looking into okay, so who could have done this? Like this is not an accident. This is not something because. What they talk about is that it didn't actually explode. It looks like an explosion. That's the effect of what happened, but it was actually more like it got dismantled on a molecular level. So someone did this. This took some major chops and power to pull this off, and they sort of run down like, so who's even big enough? Who could do this? And they list a few suspects, and the last one they come to is, well, Sinestro and the Yellow Lanterns could theoretically pull this off. Like, but why? Why would they? Kind of thing. So. Yeah, so this is going on. As this is all happening, though, something weird's happening where, as Kelly's talking to Joe, more and more of it's not being translated, and the Ring's saying, no, everything's fine, the translator's working, there's nothing wrong.
Right.
But more and more what Kelly's saying is just turning into Spanish.
And it's all Spanish, yeah.
And it kind of ends with her just speaking in Spanish, and it's when she hears them talking about Sinestro and that she says a bunch of things, it's not translated, but you do hear part of it, just the name of the where is it? Is it the planet she says? I can't remember. She says something that you can sort of tell that she's planning on going to take on Sinestro on her own.
Yeah.
And she flies off, and I think it's the other one who's like, "Hey, I think she's got off to take on Sinestro," and she's like, "Yeah, no kidding." She's going to Corrigar. So that's the cliffhanger. I wouldn't say there's anything as juicy in this issue as the first few. This one was very much a middle issue, but I think it worked fine enough, and I think I'm interested again, I'm still more interested in the Joe and Kelly stuff than I am the John stuff. But
on that last moment where we're just that whole exchange where she goes, the Child Lantern is upset, and that's where Joe's like, no shit. Her medical report said she is suffering from post-traumatic stress. No shit. She's on her way to New Corrigar. And just the expression here, no shit. Just like that's a very well done cinematic moment.
Yeah.
Here, character development. But the stuff on Oa or new Oa and all that stuff, way more. But I did like John finding out on his side about this stuff, and it really makes it feel like he's kind of marooned. So it kind of feels like one of those old stories where the soldier kind of gets the locals together. To fight off.
I think what it's doing is it's making you long for them all to team up again because he is stranded and all the other Latins are stranded, but he's the one we're getting an example of. We're getting his story.
And the last one hinted at something's going on with Hal. Hal's like deep into something.
Yeah.
So like all of our lanterns that we're used to, right? They're all scattered and we don't know really what's going on. So it forces us to, not forces us because Joe's a great character. But it makes you, follow her story, which is actually kind of smart. And it doesn't feel like editorials like, oh, we have to put Joe in this book now. It actually feels right that like her and Kelly's rings both come from different sources, so of course they would be unaffected.
It's like that episode
and it really leads into that.
It's like that episode of Power Rangers where all the Power Rangers coins get taken away, but Tommy's left because Tommy's ring or Tommy's coin. Sorry, I keep saying ring. Tommy's coin is different. There you go. So I'll compare back to that. Because there's a flashback at the start of the issue actually. Like John, as he's passed out, is thinking about back when Hal was Parallax, all that stuff. Because this confused me for a second. Because like, wait, what's going on? Why did this happen? I was like, it's a flashback. It's a flashback.
Yeah, this is during Emerald Twilight.
Yeah.
Where Hal's given into Parallax, and that John was a guardian. I forgot about this.
Yeah. I think this is maybe like him remembering the last time that he remembers the system completely breaking down and that everything was so topsy-turvy. I think that's kind of the point of it. But
yeah. Well, and that's when Hal went and was taking out members of the Green Lantern Corps, like, so that was the last time. And then we had Kyle as the Torchbearer and only Green Lantern for a long time. And this feels very kind of similar to that era, even though we have these Green Lanterns sprinkled around. So,
yeah.
No, yeah.
There's
That's very interesting because we never see John in that, so it almost feels like he has a different form.
Yeah, it's just like POV. It's like coming from his perspective. I think the art, it's pretty much similar to what we said before. I think the artist, who I assume it's Raney on the first half. I do think like sometimes the heads he draws are a bit too big, but it is a bit cartoony. But I do think sometimes that expressiveness, like sometimes with the aliens that John's kind of fighting, like when they kind of like smirk or growl at him, I was kind of, that's kind of a fun vibe. Like it's giving me a decent. So it's not an unpleasant look, even if it's not necessarily my favorite type of art or always hitting the mark. Right. There's moments to kind of like, but that last page though with John, where he's like sitting there, his head looks too big for his body, and it looks like when you're playing a video game, you turn on big head mode. It's got that kind of vibe to it.
Or it's like the X Babies, right? Like,
yeah.
So, yeah. But no, it's a really good issue, and again, the Kelly and Joe stuff at the end really, really, really picked up the rest of it.
It's like a solid book, I think, for me so far, and that it's not perfect, and it's definitely not in that upper tier where we're talking about like some of the books right now that are really firing on all cylinders and are kind of like like we're just going to be talking about Swamp Thing soon, like that Swamp Thing's in that kind of category. But I did enjoy this though. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm gonna do this an 8.5.
Yeah, that's a bit high for me. I'll go with a nice solid 7.5. But
there you go.
I'm enjoying the book. Definitely, if I'm dropping this or Justice League's the one that's
easy
jettisoned into the sun. So there you go. The Swamp
like
Thing.
They did with Sinmar.
Yeah, Sinmar. Yes, like with Sinmar. Anyway, the Swamp Thing issue 5. Ram V writing with John McCrea on art. So we got a issue off for Perkins. For what is effective, I mean, I would say it's a one and done per se, but it's definitely more focused and central and into a single idea than the issues so far. So as with I think a lot of the best Swamp Thing issues, it is very ethereal, and you're kind of like taking a little bit of time to get your bearings and what's going on and what it's talking about. And we start with 2 separate stories where we got something going down in London, which is hard to kind of grasp because I'll admit the first half of the London story, whenever we got to it, I was like, wait, there's people upstairs that are like trapping around the apartment. What's going on? But then when it gets to the idea and what's causing like this, because I thought, is this just like meant to be like random fascists that are kicking about? Like what's happening? But then as the story went on, it becomes about this. No, there's a bomb that didn't go off during the Blitz. That is basically the idea of what it represents has spread like a magical idea throughout the building, and it's like turning people into fascists, which are it's the idea of like the idea itself exploded rather than the bomb. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually really interesting stuff that I really like.
And that this whole from the time this book started, that ideas are starting to be given physical form. And right now, with where humanity's at, that is a very bad indication.
What I did like immediately though is the visual of the almost the techno horror of the guy who's like got all the pipes like that of sort of going through his various limbs, it's like he's merging with metal, and it's just like, oh, this is this
he's
Tetsuo the Iron Man shit that I I totally get into.
yeah. So he's got all the stuff, and it connects him to the rest of the city. So that's how it's kind of spreading.
Yeah,
is that he gave it. But yeah, just the whole idea that during the Blitz, this bomb went off and got buried, and then it's been kind of slowly poisoning.
or didn't
everything.
go off. More accurately.
That's what I mean. Didn't go off. And
Which
got
is not
buried.
uncommon.
No. They could build bombs properly. Some of them just sit there.
The amount of, I mean, even in my hometown, as I was growing up, so a long time after the war, it was still like every other month there'd be, someone found a bomb in the garden. Oh yeah, bomb squatter on it.
Jeez.
Because where I grew up was I grew up in Coventry, which was a large target because it was a source of munitions factories. I had like multiple munitions factories, so it was bombed a lot.
Yeah, makes sense.
So there were tons of just. Someone found one in the back garden again.
There's a lot of things
it's really common.
There's a lot of things I love about it as well, because it talks about all these lines underneath, and obviously it's referring to the pipe system which connects this guy to the rest of the city once he's been entangled up in them, right? But the idea, the reason why this has happened from the bomb is because it's also talking about these lines as if they're fault lines in magic, where
ley lines,
or maybe not even magic's maybe not the right term, but like of the energy, and because that's like bled into the bomb and that's making the bomb spread its influence. So the idea that we have fault, kind of like how we have fault lines for earthquakes, we have fault lines for energy and magical energy that are
right.
Ley lines are pretty old ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool, and the way it blends into this stuff, and the idea that human ideas are infecting the natural order of things, and it's these human ideas of fascism and the war and all that is bled into it, and it's may having a negative impact on it rather than the other way around, like we normally think of it as.
And it's kind of like these old ideas have a way of festering and becoming something worse. And that's something.
It's a good metaphor as well, if nothing else.
No, it is, because when you start looking into history and you start looking at stuff isn't that different, like the technology's different, but human attitudes seem to go the same way about stuff, and that of course these older ideas have a way of keep popping up.
Yeah, I think what's so impressive is that we've been sitting talking about this core idea of the book, which I think makes it kind of great, and we've not even either talked about Swamp Thing himself yet, or the fact that Constantine's in this issue. Like the idea itself is so strong and interesting that we could sit and talk about that probably for another 10 minutes without even getting to those two characters.
And like Constantine shows up on like the 3rd page, maybe the 4th page, something like that. It's early on in the issue. He's like co-guest star in this issue.
Yeah. And Levi's, he feels like embarrassed. I mean, that's maybe too late a word, but the idea that Jennifer will find out that he's the monster that she's been dreaming of after getting out of the green. Like he wants to leave, but he gets pulled to London because of what's happening. He transforms and gets pulled there. So the stories kind of intersect like halfway through, because at first Swamp Thing's side feels fairly disconnected. Because even though we find this man with all the pipes in him, we don't necessarily know that's the guy that's missing from this woman's life yet.
No,
right? That's
you don't know that's Nigel. So Constantine finds this girl who I assume I thought was somebody, but I just looked her up, and this is the first.
I assumed it was a character that maybe popped up before that I just didn't know, but fair enough.
but it seems like she tried to study under Constantine and realized that he's probably not the best teacher because he's a scumbag. So she went her own way, but she has a little bit of training, right? Because she talks about this powder that she has, but she was able to conjure Constantine there, in like her moments, because doesn't it look like she's getting ready to off herself before he shows up, or is that part of the?
I think that's how she's summoning him.
That's the ritual, yeah.
Well, because just the way that says she promised herself she wouldn't do this, not after how they left things, but she has no choice now. So just from the beginning, it felt like okay, but no, it's definitely she's doing the summoning spell.
Yeah, I think she's cutting a palm, not a wrist.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's just because I happened to be on the page that full page spread basically of Swamp Thing looking
bombs.
at Nigel and the and all the pipes, and I love that the thickest pipe's the one going right into his crotch as well, just to add to the horror of the whole thing. But it's because obviously Perkins is perfect on this book, but I do think the artist on this here McCrea. I think he's actually a really good fill-in artist for this because
I love it for this issue.
Yeah.
You know, really dark and scratchy, and dingy. It really suits the London aesthetic that this is going for.
Yeah, it's going for that kind of almost dystopian London as well, because you see the halls of the building, and it's just like graffiti and the barrels with fire, which somehow dystopias always have. But yeah, it's super super dark and nasty. I mean, Constantine scares off the thugs for a bit.
Yeah.
But they define Swamp Thing, that the stories intersect. You realize this is in the basement of this building. And yeah, Constantine has to sort of go in and get him, basically, and retrieve him, because effectively this guy's soul or whatever is lost in the memory of what this bomb is representing. So he's like he's a child wandering around London. It's not even
the Blitz.
And it's not even real London. It's more like a fictitious version of as if it was just completely destroyed in the Blitz.
It's an idea of what London might have been at the time.
So it reminded me of that scene with all the planes flying over and stuff. It reminded me of the scene in 1917, and I know they weren't in London, but where it's all lit by the flamethrowers and the fires that are raging through that town.
Oh, that's a good scene.
And it looks like hell. Yeah, and I was getting that vibe.
Actually, just to go on that idea of what the bomb represents. That's what he's seeing. I mean, I would maybe even spin that to it's what the people who sent it hoped.
Yeah,
the bomb would do.
This is
well, and that's
their idea.
Well, and that's the thing with bombings, right, especially during World War II, is you're trying to beat somebody into submission, right? So it's relentless, and it's more the idea that the bombs are coming versus what they're actually doing. Which they're blowing people up, and that does it. But it's the fact here comes another wave, and I remember
the fear, the disruption to the life.
Yeah, that's where the whole keep calm and carry on comes from, right?
Yeah.
As along those lines. But I remember reading a book by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about it kind of backfired on Germany that way, that it made a more resilient Britain, because you had places where the bombs didn't go off as much. So clearly, your hometown, Connor, that you had a lot of these near misses, and it made for a stronger person because they're like, oh, that's all you got. And so it was able to, to bring things home better, and that it didn't work out. But in a lot of places that the opposite happened, like just a total devastation, and clearly that's here with London, right? London was a big target as well.
Constantine obviously gets Nigel out of the thing. Swamp Thing takes the bomb itself to, and he wants to take it to a place that's suitable to let it go, so he takes it to a concentration camp, like the former concentration camp. And I don't even know if he's meaning to blow it up. That maybe just be an accident that it goes when he's burying it, but it does blow up. We get that glorious full page of all of his green being kind of splatted back the way in the blast. But because I was thinking, actually, as he was going somewhere, I was like, where's he taking it? Where do you take a bomb like this? And it felt kind of fitting that he took it to somewhere else where the IDs are so awful that it won't affect it really.
So I just pulled up this place, right? And it's coming from a National Geographic, but it says Forgotten Nazi Concentration Camp in England revealed by archaeologists.
Oh,
so it's on British soil.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's on one of the Channel Islands, so I'm sure you guys know more where those are. I'm sure that's in between in the channel.
As the name suggests.
But this was right. Well, this was found last year.
Oh, okay. Oh. This is a recent discovery.
Yeah, at the end of the war, Camp Sultan, other small Germany camps it's on Alderney Island, were dismantled and slowly faded into the landscape. Now our British team has reconstructed and tracked down how it grew over its short but brutal history. So I mean, props to Ram V for working that in there.
Now you said that, because on this plaque that's here in this panel, I did think that 400 sounded like a low number for people who died at a concentration camp, but it makes sense if it was just one on an island that was that far away from.
I guess the only weird thing then is that plaque is like 2008, right?
Right.
Yes.
So, but maybe they knew it was there, but they didn't find the bigger remains of it. Then just 75 years ago, it was feared, heavily guarded German prison where hundreds of men suffered and died. So they knew it was there, but I don't think they realized how big it was.
So not only is this a great issue about Swamp Thing and Constantine and the idea and just the idea of ideas and how it pollutes something and how they grow and fester, it's also somewhat educational in that we've led to this conversation.
And it's like it's also that whole mentality that the Nazis they're not us, they're different, but this is something that was on British soil already. And that's where he takes it to this dark place, where the damage has already been done.
It's one of those things
are
where,
already there.
Because Swamp Thing, I mean, he literally goes from New York to London in the opening of the book, so there was no reason to necessarily assume where he went. It was just kind of,
you hear Lagersilt, and you're like, okay, well, Lager sounds like a German word.
Yeah, it does say Alderney, but I didn't know where that was just by the name.
Yeah, well, Alderney also sounds like that could be anywhere in mainland Europe too.
It literally says, he resurfaces on the desolate edge of a distant island, and that's what it says, Alderney.
Yeah, distant island could be like very distant.
Right. So, yeah. But yeah, no. I don't love the art as much as you two did. Like, I think it's fine, but we're also spoiled by Perkins. So, but the horrific, more of the horrific stuff. I feel like his Constantine's a little bit too cartoony, in times, compared to the rest of the characters. Like, but I guess he stands out because compared to Sierra, and even Nigel when he's there, Constantine still feels like way over the top.
I guess he's maybe larger than life compared to the other humans, which
I love, except for the panel where he stood next to Swamp Thing and he's looking up at him and he's like looks tiny in comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the little epilogue section at the end is just tying back into we're leading the Suicide Squad, and I think, to be fair, I didn't feel because it's this month's issue of Suicide Squad that's relevant, right? Or was it last month's? I can't remember. But there's kind of there's a loose crossover happening.
It says to be continued, so I'm assuming it was the next issue of Suicide Squad, but I don't actually know.
But I think this on its own, whatever we're going to do with them and Swamp Thing, I think this is enough to set it up. They're coming for Swamp. Amanda Waller wants to control Swamp Thing, or at least part of him. And
the weapon.
Yeah. So she's dropping this device to lure him in, which fair enough, and that's all you need. So. But the point I'm trying to make is as of yet, I do not feel like I'm missing anything because I've not read any Suicide Squad.
No, I will say this last page stuck out as just this weird, just separate page as to the rest of the issue. Like the rest of the issue ended the page before with the that plaque was essentially the final panel, and then it's just here's a page we stuck on the end.
Yeah,
it
felt a bit out of place, and I guess we got to set this up.
So apparently this week's Suicide Squad had Swamp Thing show up, but I'm willing to bet it was just a loose tie to drive this story more.
It could very well be that when we get to next issue, this won't matter anymore, and this last page is basically just something you can ignore.
Well, I'm wondering if the Suicide Squad is going to come for him, and he's going to have to basically, show him that Swamp Thing doesn't get taken as easily. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, maybe.
So... Yeah, but no, very, very, very good issue.
Oh, excellent! I love the ideas in this one. It's one of these things where so much of what I like about Moore's Swamp Thing run is that this kind of ethereal idea of you don't really get what it's talking about right at first, but as it keeps going and you start to understand the more dreamlike dialogue and the narration, you kind of get the heavier ideas that it's kind of hitting at. So this is exactly the sort of thing I want out of a Swamp Thing book. All right, Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Connor?
I'm good with a 9.
I'm also going to go with the 9. So, excellent issue. All right. Wonder Girl, issue 2. Dave... wait, hold on. I have not changed these names from what I copied this from.
Nope.
Joelle Jones. Joelle Jones. Yep. Joelle Jones is on this. I copied this from, I think, the Man-Bat issue, so I had their names written down. So yes, Wonder Girl issue 2. So, first issue obviously introduced her as a character, teased some of the larger scope of things, but it ended with her just going into the water and meeting this god or creature.
Yara.
Yeah. So, this other Yara, yes, because we find out at the start of this issue we get a bit more context, and this is also where she gets her weapon, which I still don't remember the name of, but.
It's like that bola lasso. I don't think it. She might have said the name, but it hasn't been
Well, that's what I mean.
There.
Even like, yeah, that like Bola Lasso. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I tend to remember Yara Flor better than most. So, no, you know.
Yeah. This is more my lack of knowledge and weapons that is just showing.
Clearly.
It's unacceptable.
But anyway, so yeah, obviously some gorgeous art. I particularly love the panel of because it just looks like an orb of light, and it's just all the shadows and the darkness of the water as it's been handed to her.
Because it makes it at the beginning, it makes it feel like Iara is like this. It's dangerous, right? Like it's this creature that's coming for her. But no, it decides to give her this orb.
Yeah,
for her journey.
I mean, everyone else from Themyscira to Brazil, they all seem to know. Everyone in the Amazon circles all seem to know that Yara has a great potential, and they're all scared of it. They all think she's dangerous.
Yeah, it's what it reminds me of, Pete, is do you remember when they first brought Kara back in the Batman Superman run?
Mm-hmm.
And there was this tag that Batman had read that basically it was like, she be your greatest help or your greatest threat. And they kind of tried to make it that Supergirl could break bad at a certain point. And if she does, she has all the potential to be worse than anything Superman's seen. And all was for nothing. I get that vibe here, too, with Yara, is that she's such an unknown that whoever gets their hands on her can, kind of dictate who she becomes.
Yeah, honestly, the only critique I have of this opening underwater stuff is that some of those early panels of where it plays with the shadows are so goddamn gorgeous that the full page spread of like Yara holding it and it lights up isn't as impressive by comparison. So it's like, I mean, it's good, but it's not as moody and like magical looking as those previous panels. So it's almost like Joelle Jones kind of like peaked too soon in the scene. So the big payoff page was a little lacking as a result.
But I also feel like once it's clear, that's when it lights up, right? And so this is the truth of the moment.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
So it doesn't need to be dark and moody. So I wouldn't say it necessarily peak. Maybe artistically, but
well, that's what I mean.
Stylistically.
Yeah, I mean artistically more than anything else. So obviously she comes out of the water. Tourists are all freaking out, and we cut to other characters. Artemis, like, oh, we have to deal with this, we have to go get her. Yara's still kind of flirting with the bus driver a little bit, who says he'll get her home. And then we bring in Cassie, who is going to be a supporting character in here as well, which is kind of nice.
I didn't know this was going to be.
Yeah, Hippolyta kind of sends her on her way to go and not assassinate her, because you get the feeling that some of the others are just going to stop her, whereas Cassie feels more like she's going to be a bit more helpful, if not diplomatic, about it. So
well, like she even says, if there's a chance I could spare her life and send her back into hiding, then I'm duty bound to go. So it's clear that that's her aim. She's the one that's trying to save her, and just be like, go piss off back and stop doing Amazon stuff.
Again, we're all thinking, like, what are they all so concerned about? Like, what what exactly is the legend that's been teased with this?
Right, but we kind of know that too. She is the daughter of a river god at a certain point. That's why I'm assuming that's why she's named after Yara, because she's Yara. So. I don't know. But Cassie's the daughter of Zeus, right? And so is Diana. So at this point, does it really, why is that so important? Also, the Bana Migdal Amazons are always up to no good. So why are we worried about them? And what she means, it's like, of course they have bad intentions.
Yeah, I mean, they basically they somehow get onto the plane that she's flying back to Rio on, and Yara gets up to fight, not really realizing yet, of course, that she's an Amazon, or these other women are Amazons and there's super strength or anything involved. She just kind of is ready to get scrappy and ends up punching her so hard. We get this red panel where the punch happens, and because of the way that they had the character, the Amazon was running towards her, you really get the impression that she ran into this punch, like she was bolting at her at full speed and got swiped in the face. And Yara's kind of freaked out about it. And then there's another Amazon, and there's almost like, and I think this is something I liked about the first issue, is because Yara's kind of a likable, playful character in her attitude. even the action, I think, has a little bit of that, because we have this other Amazon like pushing the trolley, the aisle trolley at her, and there's something about her yelling her name as she's pushing this at full speed down the aisle. Just had some humor to it. That gave it a bit of a vibe that wasn't just, okay, so we've got all these Amazons, we've got all these prophecies, and people try to kill her because they think she's dangerous. But there's still kind of a playful element to it in the middle of it all that makes it all much more digestible, I think. And
I love how it's like she doesn't know her own strength. So when she kicked the cart,
yes,
she wasn't expecting it to punch a hole in the plane.
She's just a bit like, oops.
Yeah, it's like, oops, it is. Yeah, because the Amazon falls out, she gets sucked out of the cabin pressure. She gets sucked out. So super. And then Yara's like, okay, everyone, hang on. Everyone brace themselves. And we get a bit of a sort of joke little postcard montage of Cassie and Artemis searching, and then eventually that influencer guy, the social media dude from last issue, becomes a factor because
Kevin,
yeah, they find him, and then Artemis is like, "Why are you following me?" And he's like, "I'm not following you. I'm following him. I'm trying to find someone." So they have a bit of a tussle, and then they run into the two Amazons that were on the plane, the Brazilian Amazons, and they're like, you have no idea what we're up against, blah, blah, blah. So all these things are converging. All the people who are looking for Yara are all kind of converging, so that should be a fun thing. And it feels like Yara helps land this plane, bizarrely. Did anyone else get that impression?
Well, it's the wind god, Zephyros.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, it was something about... the art there was really good. I love the kind of the way the clouds are kind of parting or the smoke as it's coming down, which is kind of neat.
It's the god, like, you can literally see the hands.
Cupid. Yeah.
No, that's Eros. And I know, but let's be specific.
Okay, but it's Cupid.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's Zephyros is the god of the wind. That's
right.
Yeah, so the whole thing here is that to go with the reason why Matt keeps saying Cupid is because he's got a Cupid bow and arrow, and he fires it, but he cuts his own hand as he fires it at Yara,
which is a very Cupid thing to do.
Yes, and the issue ends effectively with him falling in love with Yara. Although we do it's
possibly the most contrived element of the book so far.
Yeah.
This master archer god cuts his own hand on his arrow, drawing it back. Like what?
Yeah. So this the wind god here, is this meant to be the wind god behind him at the end in the last page?
I believe so, or it's whatever made him nick his hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, because the wind god is the one that's guiding the plane down.
Yeah.
Like,
I was a little confused with this last page because I wasn't sure what this was meant to be behind him.
No, I think it's more of a mystery. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible this thing, whatever it is, like made him cut himself with it, like sort of influenced it to control the situation a little bit? I don't know. And that's less, I'm not trying to explain the convoluted part of this happening at the end. It was more just that I'm trying to wonder if, like, it seems sinister. It seems like whatever this is up to no good.
Yeah.
Well, it took aim at her, right? And it's almost as if, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they are in Brazil, if this is the river god protecting her from whatever machinations of the Greek gods.
Possibly.
You know what I mean?
Could be, because these are obviously all the Greek gods here. Maybe their own gods.
Right.
Can be a bit of a fight.
I enjoyed this issue. I think it's maybe a little bit less focused than the first one was. So it's maybe
not enough Yara is the biggest problem.
I think that's fair. I did enjoy Cassie being included, but yeah, I probably could have used a bit more Yara going throughout. And that one convoluted story beat at the end does stick out a little bit. But at the same time, though, I do like it did make me look forward to Yara like dealing with his advances next, because I expect that to be fun. I expect her like sort of like kind of fighting him off in a way to be kind of entertaining, given her personality. So we can see how that goes. But it's still enjoyable, though. I would say, if not as good as issue 1 was. All right, Matt, you want to read it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give us an 8.
Huh?
Same.
Yeah, I agree with 8. It's still very good. Just not quite as exceptional as that first issue was. Cool. The Nice House on the Lake, issue 2. James Tynion IV and Alvaro Martinez on the art. This is, of course, was a book that we were really into with issue 1.
Mm-hmm.
Set up a lot of big ideas, and issue 2 is here. I will start with my one and honestly I think only complaint of the whole issue. I really wish it was still labeling the characters with the titles as they were popping up.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because I could not remember who was who.
I know
and
that
these context clues.
I was like getting them from context as they were going through.
yeah.
The problem was when we had the transcript pages,
Yes.
Uh-huh.
which I like. Don't worry, I have no problem with the transcript pages, but they're like, it's all by their titles. Writer,
Yeah.
reporter,
Right.
Which
doctor.
I like the transcript pages. I mean, arguable there's maybe one too many because there's like 3 of them, so it's maybe a lot to read. But I do like it because the idea that they're being monitored, the idea that someone's like printing all this out, is really cool. It's a good vibe.
The problem
Mhm.
that I have is, so they're still just talking. They're not using the titles in the dialogue
Right.
of the transcript, but it's written as a transcript from the titles. So it's
Right.
they're talking about like Rick and Sam and and I'm like, but I don't remember who is who to
Yes.
match up to their titles.
Right. And there's so many of them that you're not sure who they're talking to bring that.
Yeah,
So,
because
like,
if it was only 5 or 6 characters, I think you'd get onto it pretty fast. But because there's
Yeah.
like 12, it's quite a lot.
I forgot the name of the artist, but I remember she was our main character in the first one.
Yes. Yeah,
And
and even then, I was like, "Is this the one with the blue hair?" Like,
right.
I feel like with a character with this many books, where it's not like superheroes where they all have distinct costumes. Like, you really have to.
Right.
And they've given us these titles that are actually easier to remember, but they have to use them more. They have to actually label them.
What we need is how like old superhero comics, say older used to do, like all the faces at the start.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Bendis
just-
Justice League's still doing that.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's kind of a throwback thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
but I
done
mean,
now.
yes, it would be useful here.
One of those at
Very
the start.
useful.
Next, just their symbol.
Right.
I don't think you need to put their faces because we'll match the faces through dialogue naturally.
Right.
But if you just put their symbol,
And
the
their name.
title, and then their name, just on on the first page, you can even still do it in like a fancy layout and do it in a circle or something. That might be a bit Wiki Divine actually, but you can do something with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the one key thing, and it's almost like because of that, I can't really gauge the characters on like an ongoing way yet. They're still just kind of a group of people to me right now, as opposed to like really knowing who each of them are individually.
Right. Well, and it helps that the writer Nora had their hand, messed up.
It does actually help.
So-
Yes, the one with the broken hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that helps. But like the one that went to talk to them, I don't know their name and I don't know their title.
Yes.
So that said, the dynamics between everybody is really the star of this.
Oh yeah, the
issue.
dynamics are great, and the idea that is it Walter is the actual
Mm-hmm.
alien?
I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea that we get a flashback
Alien,
at the
bad guy,
start,
whoever.
because our character that we're focusing on in this issue is the man of the couple, and he seems to be remembering this time in college where Walter was like feeling down and didn't think anyone liked him, and he kind of gave him a pep talk about it. But throughout this issue, we see that he kind of appears to him in the mirror, but he's still kind of like deformed, like he's all in split up and kind of
Mhm.
like weird looking.
Yep.
And by the end of the issue, he's kind of like convincing his wife that we should still stick to the itinerary that he made because it'll keep us
Mhm.
sane if we have a kind of schedule. And because we see the schedule as a page that's devoted to the schedule, which is like, hey, each night's a movie night, and
Yeah.
it's like Wednesday's Western night, and this day we do this activity. And the idea being that we have a, but it kind of feels disingenuous because again at the end after he's had this conversation with his wife, you see him looking at Walter again, and Walter's like
Yeah.
standing there watching, like he's influenced this, like he's speaking
It
through him, kind of.
Feels like the illusion of free will.
Mm.
You guys can do whatever you want as long as it's this thing. And yeah, so Connor called him an alien, called Walter an alien,
Yes.
but I'm getting God vibes here just with this whole issue, and I feel like this issue is almost about faith in general because they talk about how each of them encountered Walter and how they kind of fell out at certain times, and they all have different, you know, they all have different relationships almost. Like, yeah, I remember him from childhood, but it was weird that he came back into my life when he did. And at the end, that this pianist, right, is almost kind of like, well, we should just follow what Walter says, and maybe it'll be for our own good, which is almost like looking at something, you know, like a certain book or whatever as kind of guidance, and it almost makes you feel like these are almost the seeds of zealotry.
I mean, even if he's not literally a godlike being, he's just an alien playing God or whatever. Like, I think that analogy and exploring those themes of how these characters treat what effectively their new god has told them are the rules, and that this is their new Eden, and that they may or may not, you know, eat the forbidden fruit, as it were. You know, I think that analogy makes still stick throughout this. That makes still be a very good piece of analysis.
And just like, and the artist here already trying to piece things together, right? She starts drawing their different kind of what their labels are and stuff. And then as they start going through the house, they kind of realize that everything they kind of ever wanted is there. You know, like all these books are books that Walter told Nora to read when they were teenagers. You know, and it's almost like, well, why is all of this
a lot of name dropping in that bookshelf as well, if you pay attention to the names.
I definitely had a good look.
From Hell was there. I noticed a few.
Well, The King in Yellow, which is a big, isn't that a Lovecraft story? Or at least based off the Cthulhu mythos. So I remember that going around during True Detective.
Sure.
That was a big...
Lord of the Flies in there, which I thought was an interesting one, given that it's a group of characters on their own, trying to function as a society now.
There's a lot of obviously speculation, and there's a lot of like the rules been set up. There's an invisible wall around the place that one of the characters is kind of like went around the perimeter and like sort of checked. But they're talking about going in the boat, see if they can get to another side of the lake or whatever. But I think the big thing towards the end is that the two characters, because they're talking about like how the supply is going to come in, and they're just going to appear when we're not looking, and they're looking for secret stashes. And they end up finding a weapons room with guns, which is a very interesting thing for Walter to have placed there. Almost like this could be actually, I mean, given the you know the transcripts and the security cameras and like someone watching and recording all this, it does feel like a bit like an experiment. And part of you does wonder, like, is this intentionally trying to see how long it takes something to break down into factions or into whatever it's going to turn into? The weapons, they're intentionally there because conflict is inevitable.
And it feels like while they have connection to outside, it's very limited because it's almost like they're just shown what they were shown, right? And that everything goes down. Like, what does the comedian guy say?
It's like the internet shouldn't exist anymore, but it's still up just for them to access it.
Yeah.
Right. And that it should be done by now if everything's gone to hell. So, like, again, it wouldn't surprise me if this is some kind of experiment to see how they react. And then the whole idea of that sculpture outside showing you what the outside world, what your home looks like.
Well, yeah, that's the other big thing. One of them discovers that if you touch...
jacked up.
Yeah, if you touch this statue or symbol outside, it gives you a vision of where you came from. So one of them touches it and you see New York or whatever it is. Just and there's people, like... They basically look like they're either in From Beyond or The Thing, and they're like melting into multiple versions of themselves. It's kind of like a more... So in the way that Walter does it is kind of like a natural kind of like almost graceful way, whereas this is more like someone's got cancerous lumps and tumors.
Remind me of the end of Watchmen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, when all the squids of like, or how the city looks when all the it's all happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely have some trust issues with Walter, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily feel like...
Is this like a test to like just see if they do break down, or is it a test to know that they're going to, but it's just to see how long it takes and study it?
Because what we know about Walter so far is that he was friends with all of these people, right? And he came to them at certain times, and he kept up relationships over time. And it seems like the pianist is the one that he was closest with, because Walter was the best man at his wedding, right? So of course he's going to be the one that trusts Walter the most.
That they were the closest, but that whole bit in the opening was like, no. When Walter had an attachment, he genuinely like loved them as equals.
Right.
And it's hard not to get back to that religious analogy that you're going about.
Right.
It's very Jesus and his 12 disciples,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because it is 12, right? Because I
It
just
is
kind of
12.
Yeah.
I threw that number out there earlier, but I wasn't really thinking about the exact.
No,
Yeah, no,
it's
It's
12.
12 issues. I remember we
Yeah, that's right,
kind of
yeah.
surmised during the solicits that each of those ones is going to be, each issue is going to be a different of these characters.
It also makes me wonder, like, is there? So I mean, obviously there's something at least high tech or supernatural going on with Waller,
Right.
but it does kind of make me wonder: is this just a test by other humans that this is all just like it's not real? Like this, like
That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Trust issues with Walter,
Yeah.
like, because like you just said, the internet's not working, but it is working, and it all feels like they were just fed something that when they get out, it's going to turn out like, oh no, y'all just tore yourself. It's like Lord of the Flies, right?
yeah,
Connor brought that up. Like in the moment, these children think this is an apocalypse, but when they're saved, Earth or the world outside of that island still went on, you know. But this house is almost built to keep them there.
and keep in mind though,
Yeah.
we know from the prologue scenes, both in this one
Mhm.
because the guys get long hair, and the last
Yeah.
one with the gun
Right.
and sitting in the steps,
Right.
that they're here for a lot. Some of them are here
A
for a long
while.
time. Like they're
Yeah.
here until at the very. I mean, it's not grow up because they're all adults already, but
Yeah.
they're here until
Right.
their hair grows out. They're here until
Right.
the guys have beards and
Right.
whatever else. So
It'll be a couple months, right?
At the least.
At
But
the shortest.
given that like a lot of these guys have fairly short hair already, and
Mhm.
it's long by the like I say
Right.
by the prologue scenes, that's not something that's just a couple of months of growth. That's
yeah, it
years.
feels like years. Yeah, it feels like some of them are going to be here for like 5 years or
Yeah.
10 years. It does feel like a big time span they're stuck here.
Yeah.
So
But yeah.
yeah.
Just I also can't get over the art, how it gets like the stillness of the house on the lake right at the title page,
Mm.
and then just the sheer chaos when it needs it, right? Like
There's the
Ueno's so good at that balance.
there's a page with I think it's with the pianist. It's intercutting like the pianist,
Yeah.
with the just playing, just on the hands on the keys,
Right.
and the rest of them are out by the statue.
Yeah.
And it's really scattershot, like the layouts. It's kind of a little bit, almost all over the place in terms of the panels, very frantic. But it's a fantastic page.
Yeah, I'm not putting money on like any outcome here. Like I'm suggesting different things that are coming into my head because I feel like they're all equally kind of possible.
I
think there's some- I think-
after this one.
Well, I was
Go
just gonna say, I think there's something about everything, like the idea that they've even set up this entrance, like symbol to like give them this vision of like where they came from. Everything feels like designed to convince them that it's real, which makes me
Right.
go. It almost feels too much. It almost feels like
Right.
someone's really wanting you to believe this, and I get why they do believe it. I'm not saying they're stupid characters
Right.
because they're considering
No.
that it's real, because they have been given a very ample amount of evidence by this point. Like one of them
Right.
talks about seeing emails in their account from like loved ones saying, "I couldn't get a hold of you on the phone, so I just wanted to say goodbye
Right.
because they're all dying." So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that one hit hard. Just that whole idea of, they left people back there too, like the ones that didn't get an invite.
One of them like left
You
a
know?
wife, right?
and even that
Yeah.
feels intentional. Like, I mean,
Right.
again, it could be taken at face value, and this is the person he was connected to, and not the wife. But
Right.
the idea that he intentionally let a couple come together, but only have one of them, so that one would be separated and think their loved one's
Right.
dead, and then another couple's together in the apocalypse. What does that do to both of them? What's the differences?
Right. Right.
Study that.
And you control. Yeah, they're controlling the variable in a science experiment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I have to guess right now, if I had to put money down, it's definitely this is some kind of either like interdimensional, right, type of experiment to see just how you can put humans in a pressure cooker and see how they respond. Because the whole idea from the first issue that Walter would show up and ask the artist, like, what do you think the end of the world is going to be like? It's almost like he was workshopping ideas to figure out what is her worst case scenario.
All I know is the end of issue 11 where it pulls out and shows you who's watching
Mhm.
security cameras, and it's Lex Luthor. Matt's going to lose his freaking mind.
Oh, you would believe it.
I kind of hope the apocalypse stuff is real. I think it's more interesting to me
Sure.
if it's real.
See, I don't know. For me, I don't think so because I like the whole idea of the. I mean, of course, this is an unethical thing, but how that affects them going forward, right? That they thought the world was ended, and then they come to find out that no, it hasn't. Or what if they're given the opportunity to actually rebuild it through this house? You know, like
I guess
because of reality shenanigans. You know what I mean?
It comes down to like because if Walter really does love them and he's chosen them
Right.
that way, then it means it's probably because it's real and he knows everyone else is going to die. If the whole love thing was just a manipulation tactic to kind of like get the right subjects in place, then of course then it leads towards it's probably fake, or at the very least, much more malicious than it was.
I think it's not impossible that he does genuinely love them, and this is, a haven for them. But also it's an experiment as well at the same time.
Yeah. See, I also think this also shows our own personal philosophies and how we look at life, right? Whereas I fully want to believe that's not real, right? And this is all a whacked out experiment, see how they react. But ultimately, things are going to be okay, even though I know it's a horror book, that's probably long.
I mean, I'm not really siding on that. Like, I think both work in different ways, and depending on where the story's going, I think they can both. Like, I think if it's real, it works either way for the religious analogy, right? And the idea of them being given this Garden of Eden by their new god, who is Walter. But if it's real, that strengthens that, I think, a little bit, because it is literal, and it is a Garden of Eden. And what happens when they do eat from the forbidden fruit, and maybe even these glimpses of the future are after that. This is why things are so bad in the future.
What is the forbidden fruit yet, right? Like, what is the one thing? Right. What is that one thing that tell them not to do?
Fruit is leaving the house.
Right. But it seems like they can't leave even if they want to, because that one character said that they walked around and it ended up just back into a circle.
I'm assuming maybe they find a way eventually. One of them does.
Maybe.
And maybe not all of them leave. That's why some of them are still there.
Well, they just found a room full of explosives, and maybe throw some bombs at it.
Yeah.
Right. But also just the whole feels very Old Testament, the way the world ended.
Oh, sure.
Just and whatnot. So maybe Noah's Ark is in play here, right? That kind of vibe.
There's a real mix of different religious analogies going on at the same time.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
It totally is, but I think what's so great about it is that that's all there to study and analyze, but at the same time it feels very science fictiony with with the security cameras, the transcripts, the monitoring. It all feels very very cold hard sci-fi in a way as well, which is quite interesting.
Right. But I always feel like the best sci-fi, right? It flips a mirror onto that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone and whatnot, and belief systems, and what if we're all wrong? What does that mean? And that's almost at play here, because I feel like there's so many differing viewpoints here, because we have the pianist, right? The two characters we've got really to meet is the artist is kind of like, I don't know why he would have picked me. We weren't actually that close. Like, sure, we would talk, and then the pianist is like, oh yeah, he was my best friend. Just those two being the first two out the gate, they're so different. And what does that mean? But
maybe that's intentional. Two extremes at the opposite ends of the spectrum, just to
really set.
I
just want to know who's next. Whose viewpoint are we getting? And
I'm sure you could look at the solicit and find out.
I think you could. If you really wanted, you could just look at the cover for the next issue, and because the covers have the symbols highlighted, don't they?
Yeah.
Right.
And then cross-check which symbol belongs to who, because I don't remember that off the top of my head.
This is
but
here's the thing. It's fun sometimes just to have the mystery. At least that's how I feel. Sometimes when things are answered, it's not as fulfilling as just having that mystery out there. It's the whole the end of Inception. I had a friend go into IMDb and look up titles in the credits. I was like, kind of defeating the point of what that ending means, my guy. It's meant for us to talk about, not for one person to be right or wrong.
Matt, you're the person who looks up the translations and the tiniest little continuity things every single time something comes up.
Right, But I'm talking.
I'll be honest, I am surprised.
Thing.
All the Kelly dialogue that was in Spanish towards the end of Green Lantern, I'm surprised Matt didn't come in here with a transcript, all translated.
I didn't need to because I translated in my head from 5 years of Spanish in school. But I feel like that was, you got the vibe of what she was saying from the context dialogue. I didn't need to.
Okay.
But yes, in To Kill or Be Killed, I might have downloaded Google Translate to see what they were saying in Russian.
Of course.
Yes.
There was definitely an issue of like Superman or Action recently.
Yeah.
Where Matt was somewhat, he translated the Kryptonian.
Yes, he did. Yes, that definitely happened.
I said I could have if I got a cipher, but I did not.
I mean, people were just like, context was fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never even occurred to me to go and try and translate the Kryptonian. But anyway, I mean, the book's still excellent. Of course, the art is still very moody. It's like I say, the vibe is off the charts, and those pages of the transcripts really give you this idea of they're being watched, and not necessarily just by Walter. That remains to be seen at this point. Walter might just be the representative for whoever this group is. Whether they're aliens, whether they're godlike entities, whether they're trans-dimensional entities, whatever it may be. But it's keeping the interest peaked. And the fact that we can sit and theorize and talk about what things mean is always a good sign. Matt, what are you giving issue 2 of Nice House on the Lake?
I'm giving this one a 9.
Connor?
I'm going to go with an 8.5. I'm knocking a little bit off for not having the names and making me have to really figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'll agree with 8.5. I'm agreeing with Connor too much this episode, but I think I will concur with that. Still excellent stuff, though. I'm looking forward to issue 3. So cool. All right. I get a couple of Patreon books every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can pay one of the higher tiers to make myself or Connor read a book. I'm a little bit behind, so I'm doing 2 this week. I've got first up here, American Vampire issue 20, which is part 2 of 3 of the Beast in the Cave story, which is largely an origin story, this issue, for the titular beast in the titular cave. Which is a Native American woman who we see her story of being sold to this man. Well, she's already been sold to the man, but about how these explorers come and effectively trade some supplies to take her with them because she can translate the native language that they're going to be encountering and might even know the area. Although she admits in her narration that because she was bought as a child, so she doesn't really know the area that well. But she can speak the language, and basically, as the journey goes on, there's a lot of her looking at the world, the vistas, all that kind of thing. But it turns out that these 2 guys are vampires that hired her, and it's when she goes off to like sort of spy on what they were doing, because they'd always sneak out hunting and they'd come back with food, but they'd never like take weapons with them. It was kind of suspicious, and it's very pulpy. There's just this image of the guy in the top hat with his fangs like jumping at her, and she does indeed become a vampire that way. But she's different to the other vampires. The wooden stake does not kill her. Some of the other people who were in the party were actually vampire hunters. They even mentioned the Morning Star, the vassals of the Morning Star, which is something that's been like a big thing in the book. But they stake her to be safe, but it doesn't work because she's a different type of vampire. And she ends up in the cave. And that's when we finally come back to the present day. So there's a good like 2/3 of the issue. Half to 2/3 of the issue is just the backstory of this woman, this vampire that's in the cave. And it's really well told stuff. Obviously we're not in the usual Albuquerque art for this arc. So it isn't as good necessarily. Some of the vistas look nice enough. It is definitely a bit simpler line work wise. It's not as scratchy or as moody. And I do think that kind of hurts the tone. So in many ways, it is kind of maybe my least favorite arc of the book so far, but it's very short. Of course, once I'm done with this arc, I will be jumping over to that first miniseries, the World War II one. Which I assume was going on around the same time as this when it was being released individually.
I think it was. Or did they take a break?
I don't know.
I don't remember. I didn't read them in singles. I read them all in trade.
I read them
I remember
all in
people
trade
talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bit more Skinner, who's in the army with his his makeshift brother. And Skinner's basically, why don't we just kill all those people up in the hill? There might be hundreds of them in Jimmy's like, no, but there could be like innocent women and children. It may not just be soldiers. But the big cliffhanger of the issue is that the guy who went to the cave, the Native American who went to the cave to talk to the vampire and get her help, comes back, and they're like, they're the army, the Native American army, are like, okay, so were you successful in getting help from the monster? And he's like, oh yeah, our plan, we've got a plan, it's simple, we'll kill them all. And the last page is just him standing up in his full monstrous vampire form, and they're all freaking out. Again, this is kind of where the art for me kind of lets it down a little bit. I think his monstrous form looks a little bit simplistic. It feels lacking compared to what the vampires and monsters and demons normally look like in this book. So it wasn't really, I don't know, a great showstopper to end on. But I should mention though that she didn't willingly make him a vampire. He actually hacks her with a hatchet, and then takes some of her blood on his own and transforms himself. That was a weird noise as Matt was rubbing his nose.
Yeah.
Matt, it's your mic. That's what it is. It picked up a bit of noise and amplified it because your mic went.
My bad.
So yeah. So kind of just an okay issue. You know, this is probably like a 6.5 kind of in that region. Which makes it one of the weakest issues of American Vampire that I've talked about since I started doing these books for Patreon. Not that it's bad, by any means. It's just not as interesting. It kind of feels like Skinner's element of the story feels a bit shoehorned in. Like, we already kind of got his backstory back in the backups of the first arc, and it kind of doesn't feel like we really need any of this. At least yet, maybe the third issue, the third part's going to give me something that felt like it was worth telling, this extra part of his human story. But right now, it feels a bit coincidental that it's kind of so linked with other vampire stuff. You know, before he encountered vampires directly, that led to his transformation. So I'll see, because I don't remember how this arc ends. I don't remember what it adds to the overall mythos. So we'll see. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10, I think, for me on this on this second part of this arc. So there you go. That's American Vampire issue 20. The other Patreon book I've got, which is going to take a little bit longer to talk about. So the patron who's making me read it, Animal Man, let me know that next issue, which would have been issue 10 of Animal Man, I should jump to Secret Origins 39 first. And did ask that I read both stories in it, which I wasn't going to argue. But there is a Man-Bat story in here as well, which was what the first half of this book was. And this is a Secret Origins issue, so as you expect, it's kind of a take on Man-Bat's origin. What's interesting about this, though, and it kind of made me chuckle a little bit, is how it tries to kind of like fit into Batman's origin in a weird way. So get this, right? So as it's explaining, so Batman runs into Man-Bat at the start of the issue, and it's kind of this, and the art here's pretty good. It's so it's written by Jan Strand, this story, and the art's by Kevin Nolan, and you've got this kind of pulpy sort of deep blacks, and Man-Bat's like, but Batman's like got a torch, a flashlight, sort of pointed at Man-Bat, and it looks really good. And it's this idea that Batman was getting beat up by a bunch of thugs, and Man-Bat ended up jumping in to help him, and this is like right after he's transformed for the first time. And Batman's confused. He thinks it's the best like disguise he's ever seen because it looks so real, and it's setting up all this. So it's okay, cool. And there's like a display here because they're at like a museum or something, and that's where Kirk was doing his experiments. But he finds out about Kirk Langstrom from the curator, whoever it is, and they talk about how Kirk as a child had this kind of story where he fell down a cave and people like were searching for him for days, to the point where people were starting to think he was just dead, and he got kind of found late on, kind of last minute. And this was an experience where he saw bats in this cave, and Bruce actually met him once as a child. He went to, he met him at the movie theater. Not the night his parents were killed. It's not that coincidental. His parents were seeing West Side Story one night, and he was like bored, so he went out to get some popcorn, and he ran into Kirk, who was about the same age, and they kind of just played and joked around a bit and snuck around the movie theater, and it was kind of a pleasant thing, and they sort of said goodbye. But it was a little bit on the nose because Kirk told him about the legend of the Batmen, who were these like Batman monsters and stuff. And I was like, okay, I don't really like the idea of Bruce hearing the legend of the Batman before he decides to become Batman. I kind of like that to be a separate thing. where it gets really interesting though is so when Kirk was doing experiments early on, and in this case it was he was trying to like use bat sonar to like help cure blindness. Basically the bat he was working on escaped the lab, and Francina was like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. You get another bat." He's like, "Yeah, but that's not the point. Like, I had like removed that bat's like sonar abilities. Like, I'd kind of like I'd been experimenting on it, so it was blind. So it's flying literally blind. It can't. It'll be screwed. And that bat is the bat that flies into the window in the Wayne Manor, where Bruce goes, "Yes, Father, I shall become a bat." That's that bat. So that bat was blind. That's why it flew in the window. It's like someone thought it was a plot hole that bat flew into the window, and this Man Bat story is trying to explain why that bat flew into the window. And
so comics have just always been doing this.
Yeah,
this is not a new thing.
So I just, this was the moment when it sort of implied this. I sort of like, Batman even says it in his narration later on. He actually flat out says, I think the bat he was working on was the one that flew into the. I just started laughing, and not in a way that I hated it. It's one of these things where this is like it's a half of an anthology series that came out in the 80s, whatever. But I started laughing because it was so ballsy to try and tie in that bat to somehow be a bat that Man-Bat that Kirk Langstrom was working on in a lab somewhere that night, and that's why this bat flew in the window. The level of coincidence and convoluted elements to all tie these things together is like, I think I would have been okay with it if it was just that, but because Bruce had ran into Kirk as a boy and they spoke about bats, there's just too many things like linking them together here for me to swallow and think is a fun idea. But yeah, so yeah, I mean the story, Batman goes to see Francine when he realizes that this might be. In fact, he doesn't even think Kirk is Man-Bat at this point. He actually goes to Francine because he's looking for Kirk, because of where everything went down. And it's actually, while he's got her in the Batmobile, the police scanner picks up that there's a crime going on, and it happens to be Man-Bat who's like breaking in to like get supplies for something. So there's again more coincidences happening just to propel the story forward. But of course he realizes that that's Kirk, and Man-Bat flies off, and Batman says, "Look, I'm never going to stop looking for him." And the story just ends with Bruce in the Batcave, and like he's like, "I'm sure I'll see Man-Bat again soon enough." And Man-Bat's like actually hanging upside down at the top of the cave, like he's one of the bats, and it's honestly the art's kind of nice, and I kind of like the voice. I like the way the narration tells the story, and that it sounds kind of old timey, like it's an old monster movie. The way it describes how Kirk feels, or the way Kirk in first person describes how he feels very old school, and it feels like an old monster story. And I kind of dug that element of it. But yeah, the way it tries to tie into Batman's like origin story just kind of feels a bit shoehorned and silly, and it's like, okay, nice try, but very good. The Animal Man half of the story, though, which is by Grant Morrison, it's kind of weird because it ties into what's going on in the timeline, in that Buddy's not getting his powers other than flight, and he's trying to like fix them, and he's trying to tap into various animals, but it's not working. He tries to tap into the dog, and he ends up just thinking he's got fleas rather than actually getting any of the qualities that he was looking for. And as this is happening, he's with the family, and they're kind of out there with him as he's trying to like get a hold of his powers and stuff. The aliens who originally basically gave him his powers are watching from above, and they're talking about why is this acting so weird, and then that transitions to them going, let's reflect on when he got his powers, and it kind of like goes into a flashback of how he got his powers, and also how he asked his wife to marry him. So it goes kind of old school for a bit, and the art feels very old school in that sense. The dinky lines, the kind of the bold colors. It looks very Silver Age almost. Compared to not that Animal Man, the regular issues had art that looks super modern by comparison necessarily, but it definitely feels like it's got a more of a classic style in this particular story. And it shows you the first time he like used his powers, where he felt the power of the tiger and he dodged it, and then he felt the power of the gorilla and whatever else, because some animals escaped from the zoo. But then he's like, he walks over and sees the crashed alien ship, which led to his powers. What's funny though is that it kind of conceals the aliens who are watching him the entire time in shadow until the very end of the issue, where after we're back to present day and they're talking about what's going on again. It shows you that it's the same aliens who Buddy fought off, because he sort of encounters these aliens. He uses his powers. He becomes Animal Man, and then the last of the page of the book is like these two aliens who are watching him saying, "I wonder if you'll remember us." So these two yellow aliens are kind of like, yeah, we're going down to kind of like basically fix whatever's wrong with them and investigate it. But it does say to be continued in Animal Man issue 10, so it does kind of sound like this is a lead-in for that issue, and that this does fit into this part of the run. So it is a little bit weird that it's not in the collection. I had to track this down separately, so interesting. So it was good. It was a good bit of advice to like jump to this issue as well. Yeah. Now, admittedly, well, I feel like I have missed much because it is mostly just a recap of the origin. Probably not, but it is a nice little bit of context, and it's not like the origin is really explained in the main run. So this is kind of like a nice, like if you just started reading Grant Morrison's Animal Man, here's a little refresher. There's not really much to it other than a ship crashes, he gets these powers, and he also asks, what's his wife's name again? I forget. Helen? What I say? No. Damn it. Ellen. It's Ellen, not Helen. Ellen. Yeah. Ellen. So, there's not really much to it beyond just teasing that these are the same aliens that are back, and maybe when they show up next issue. But presumably, though, if they show up and say, "Hey, we're here to fix your powers," like, you just get what you need to know from that, rather than they were watching from before. But as someone who's never read an Animal Man origin story, I guess it was a nice little trip to that. And the art is different from the main book, the main issues, which is fine. But it does kind of fit the more old school, because even the way he's asking Ellen to marry him, it feels like an old 50s style. And not that Animal Man came from the 50s, I don't think, but like it felt like it was going for a classic comic book style, because it wanted to have that. Oh, shucks, I'm going to ask her to marry. Oh, I couldn't do it. I chickened out again. But then at the end of the story, he finds the courage to do it. Almost like getting the animal powers is what gave him the self-confidence. The
courage.
That said, though, when he says it, he kind of blurts it out in one word. Like, it's all, there's no like spaces between the words. It's just all, I went to be my wife. And then like he faints like soon after, and she's like, oh, he finally worked up the courage to ask. And she did say yes. So it's a happy ending, but it's kind of playing into the goofiness of Buddy a little bit. So it's pleasant. It's a pleasant little story. So it's a weird one to rate. Obviously, I'm supposed to rate the two stories. The art is really good in the Man-Bat story, and the general vibe I kind of like of it, and the way it's told, but the actual convoluted elements, I'll just give it a 7, because I think it's well done in terms of how it's told and whatnot, but it's just the ideas are a bit convoluted. The Animal Man story, I would say, is again probably in the 7-ish area, where I think it's a nice little trip down the origin story. It's a nice. I like that, at least for the time, it set it in what was going on in the ongoing book. It didn't just like do like an origin story on its own. They got Grant Morrison to come in and tell a story that fit within the confines of what was going on in the main book. So that's kind of nice. So I'll probably throw that a 7 as well. But I wouldn't say that it feels essential either to the overall. And it does kind of feel like DC said to Morrison, "Hey, we want a story for Secret Origin with Animal Man," rather than Morrison had a story in mind that was to be told. So, take that for as you will. So there you go. So I'll have more Patreon books next week. So I've been reading the Joker for one patron. David, who normally makes Connor read something, is making me read another issue of Joker this month, so that I'll be caught up and I'll be reading the new issues of Joker going forward. That said, though, I think the next issue of Joker's next week. I probably won't be reading both next week. I'll read last month's next week, and I'll read this month's week after, or whatever.
I'll probably have a couple of patron books next week myself. I think I'm due one from last month. I'll have to check. But yes. I just wasn't feeling up to it this week, I'll be honest.
You've got COVID. I think the patrons will forgive you taking a week off.
I hope so.
So... there you go. That is the books, which will take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favourites, favourite panel/moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and rank our top 5 books of the week. So, or in Connor's case, whatever he read, because he didn't read 5, I don't think.
I think I read 4.
Look, that's okay.
It took me 3 attempts to read Batman. I'm not joking. Like I read the first 7 pages of Batman 3 times because it just wasn't going in.
When you say that, I imagine you getting mad and throwing your tablet across.
I was on the computer. I literally got to like the same page. I got to it was not long after the page with Nightwing on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I kind of like I snapped into awareness, going, I don't know anything I've read in this book so far. I don't know a thing. I was like, I have to leave it and come back to it later, and that happened twice. And the third time I managed to get through it.
Well, with that said, panel/moment, Matt, what you got?
So I'm gonna go from Wonder Girl, where she gets her magic bolo, and it's all shiny and playing with the darkness and whatnot. Really, really effective.
Connor?
Despite what I just said, I did enjoy Batman. And my panel is from Batman. It's the panel of Harley Quinn going, this city's effed in the head, and I can give that diagnosis.
Sure. A lot of good stuff in Batman. I think I have to go with Swamp Thing, though. I have to go with the first time we properly see the guy with all the pipes going through him, just because it's such a horrific but weird as well. It's not like just normal horrific. It's just like a otherworldly horrific. It's that like almost Cenobite style of like body horror. So
yeah,
cool. I dug that a lot. All right, cover of the week, Connor.
I'm gonna go with the Wonder Girl variant. Not the Pride one, not Kevin Wadder one, the other one. Will Murray. It's really nice.
I'll give a shout out to some really nice covers in House of the Lake. Nice House by the Lake, of course. Swamp Thing's variant's pretty nice, but I have to go with that Batman. The all white cover with the bat cape kind of spread out.
The Jock one.
The Jock one, yeah, it's Jock. It's Jock Batman. Come on.
Yeah, it's
it's beautiful. So I go with that. Matt, what you got?
I am going with the Wonder Girl Pride variant, just because I like what it does with the purple behind her, and her swinging the bolo. Like it's a really nicely composed one.
That's a nice cover. I can't deny. Cool. All right. So best art of the week. I guess I'll go first for that. Swamp Thing was really good. Batman was really good. Nice House in the Lake probably wins though. I think just as I'm going through them in my head, I think that probably wins. Obviously, Wonder Girl also really great for the most part, but a lot of good art this week, I guess is what I'm saying. But Nice House in the Lake, I think it'll still take it just for the overall vibe and mood of it. I think is just unparalleled. Although Swamp Thing gets close for me, I think on this. Connor.
Yeah, I'm unintentionally kind of spreading everything around the different categories this time. Yeah, some weeks you have like one book that kind of sweeps everything. Not this time. So I'm gonna go with Nice House in the Lake for art.
Cool, Matt.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with make that Nice House on the Lake as well.
Sure.
Although Wonder Girl's close.
Yeah.
Wonder Girl and Swamp Thing are both pretty close. It says a lot that Batman, which again looks really good, is like easily my last choice and my 4.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say easily my last choice. I mean, but yeah, like the fact that that's like only one of 4 in contention is it says a lot. All right, top 5 then, Matt, take it away.
So number 1 is gonna be Nice House on the Lake. Number 2 is Wonder Girl. Number 3 is Swamp Thing. Number 4 is Green Lantern. Number 5 is Batman.
Green Lantern over Batman. That's interesting.
Why Batman over Green Lantern? It doesn't really.
I'm not gonna try to convince you otherwise. I wasn't expecting it.
All I know is Justice League was last.
I can cover that. Connor.
Swamp Thing, despite not having claimed any of the previous individual categories, is my top book.
Sometimes some of the parts,
Yeah. Then Nice House, Wonder Girl, Batman.
Yeah, I will go with similar to Connor here to start. I will have Swamp Thing at top, and then Nice House in the Lake. And I think I'll probably have Batman next, and then Wonder Girl, and then Green Lantern in 5th place. And again, Justice League is the one that didn't make it out of the new books. So tough, whatever. Put in your phrase here. All right, I'll tell you what's coming next week then from DC Comics, and we'll see what kind of week we're having next time. So we got Detective Comics 1039, and I'm loving that run, so I'm pleased with that. The Flash Annual 2021 issue 1, which is actually a conclusion to the arc in the Flash, so I'll check that out, see how that is. There's also the Action Comics Annual 2021. Is that still our main dude writing that?
Yeah,
it is. It's a return to the Arthurian family stuff from the Future State.
Okay, I'm a little less
Malum.
excited, but
it's gonna be so good.
But that's out. Wonder Woman 775. Connor will be covering that because Matt's not here next week. Because we kind of mentioned it briefly, but that's there. Joker issue 5 is out. Like I say, I'll be reading issue 4 next week, and then I'll be reading issue 5 later in the month, and then starting with issue 6, I will be reading that as they come out.
I'm still upset that that's $6 because the way that Pete's described it, I would read it if it wasn't for the price.
I know. Rorschach issue 10's out next week, so it's a shame Matt's missing because we do have time talking about that.
How crazy is it that Joker issue 5 costs the same price as those annuals?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I will read Rorschach early this week. Usually I wait to get it. I'll get it digitally so I can read it and send my thoughts before I leave.
Yeah, probably worth doing that. Send your thoughts on that if nothing else. Batman the Detective number 4 is out next week. Infinite Frontier issue 2 is out next week.
Mm-hmm.
Batman Urban Legends issue 5. Week 2. Why are week 2s like so packed all of a sudden again? Future State Gotham issue 3. Justice League Last Ride issue 3, although I did drop that because the weeks are so busy. Challenge of the Super Sons issue 4. American Vampire 1976 issue 10. And the Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 4 to round out the onslaught.
It does have Nightwing on it though, so I should probably rereading that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the Scooby-Doo book. I love Scooby-Doo growing up. I have no problem.
Is that Black Mask that they're running from?
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, big week next week. We got obviously Rorschach, Infinite Frontier. So big stuff for DC moving forward next week. So look forward to all that. Yeah.
Real quick. Speaking of Black Mask, Pete, did you get Black Mask vibes?
Oh, that was totally
Andrade?
that was totally Black Mask cosplay from Andrade on Dynamite this week.
Big time. I was like,
back to wrestling.
Yeah,
Well,
he walked out in a white striped pin suit and a black skeleton mask. It was Black Mask.
So when he wrestled in Mexico, he was La Sombra, which is the shadow, and wore a mask that covered his face like that. So I was like, is he going back to the mask? Like, is he gonna do this opposite lucha thing where he only wrestles in a mask? And I was like, oh no, he's took it off. Gotta see that handsome face.
I'm alright for the entrance, just for a bit of an entrance thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you know anything about Naito, I mean that's Naito's gimmick where he slowly, he comes out in like a suit and rolls up his sleeves and makes the person wait for him. Pretty hilarious. But yeah, I just saw Black Mask on there and it looked like Andrade. I had to say something.
I know. So cool. There you go. That's what's coming next week. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Not Stanley.
Stan Lee, Excelsior!
They are Patreon producers. You can, of course, support us at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. The $5 tier in particular, you get the show a day early, so that's kind of one of the more popular tiers. But go over and have a look and see if you want to help keep all the content coming, including this podcast, as well as everything else from MailFuzz TV. You can, of course, support us in simpler, but freer ways, such as hitting the like button, subscribing, commenting on the YouTubes, or rating the podcast on iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast from, with 5 stars and a review. All those things do help out a lot. And, of course, just share us out. You can get us on Twitter, of course, at DC Comics Podcast, so keep up to date with us on there. And on the rare occasion where there's not enough books and we need questions for a show, that's where we'll actually ask them. But obviously, we've been doing fine recently with books.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been doing fine. Those dark days of having no books for a month and a half last year are long behind us. So, yeah.
Now we have almost too many. We're gluttons for punishment.
But yeah, that's all of the plugging I think I need to do. So there you go. Let's say Matt will not be here next week. It'll just be me and Connor, and then the week after that it'll be flipped. It'll just be myself and Matt, probably. Although, well, it's not guaranteed. Connor might be able to make that week, but it just kind of depends.
Wishful thinking on Pete's part.
Yeah, I don't know yet my schedule.
Yeah. And then last week of the month, it'll actually be back again to just me and Connor with Matt. So we'll have a bit of an alternating few weeks with hosts. But yes, so that's the plan for July, and then we should hopefully be back to some normalcy for August. But hey, let us know what you thought of the books in the comments. Like I said, like and subscribe, all those things do really help, so please do. But that is us. That has been episode 261 of Comics from the Multiverse. So thank you very much. I give my heartfelt apologies because last week's episode actually clocked under 2 hours, like just by a little, and it felt like a slap in the face to the fans.
It felt great on my end. I'll tell you that much.
I'm jealous.
I bet it did. But yes, well, it was only under 2 hours though once I edited out the Dynamite section, which took like 20 minutes. But
it was great.
You're back.
2-hour shows are the future.
That's the dream, is it?
I'm just gonna start setting a clock, and I'm gonna walk off. I can do it at work. See ya.
Yeah, right. Matt
Top 5 real quick.
Get his rankings in. All right, that has been DC Comics Podcast. Comics in the Multiverse. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
2 hours is the future. I'm telling you now.